Not.
Okay, we're live.
Oh.
Oh.
You look good, Liz.
Thank you, Gabby. I appreciate that.
Maria, best wishes. Un beso a Juana. Juana.
Listen, this is one of my let me say as experience enough, because I've been through this since for 30, what is it? 1983 was my first campaign. You were a baby at that time. But anyway, this is interesting because, as you know,
I remember that campaign.
Well. But there is, you know, a lot of, still you learn a lot, especially from people who you're supposed to know. And so it's okay. It's okay. Well, you know, whatever happens, God is good. I am very grateful to being in this community, which all you know that I adore. And I will always defend it. And let's go, you know, let's go on. Tomorrow will be another day, and the other day, and the other day. And I hope everybody is healthy, rich, and good looking.
Yes, Celia Cruz.
That would be nice.
That's such a great sister. She just gave me a lemonade.
Nice. I'm going to be hitting the ice water hard. Oh, so refreshing. All right, who's running this meeting? Do we have quorum? Looks it. C, are you here? Can you take attendance?
Yes.
Gracias.
I don't have, again, we're going back to, I don't have the attendance sheet because it wasn't sent to me. But
well, can it be sent to you now?
One would hope, right?
So where is our illustrious chair and our vice chairs?
I don't know.
Ellie's on, it looks like,
I'm not seeing him.
on the second page.
Well, he's showing, I see his name and he's muted.
Yeah.
Well, at least he exists. This is good.
Isidro is also on the line.
Excellent.
I see Eleazar. Okay. Eleazar, are you here?
So, Liz, may I just interrupt for a second? I just noticed that the board of president is having some type of land use committee information for new members. Is that okay? Is that going on? Why did
it's not just for new members, it's open to the public. And I pointed out that it's overlapping with our general meeting and asked whether they could offer it again. And I was told that they are going to offer it again.
They will also be
currently listening to it.
YouTube. So this is the Manhattan training series. So it is always going to conflict with somebody's meeting somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but I think this is the second time in particular that the land use one conflicted.
Janelle, we're ready to go.
General meeting.
Janelle, go live.
Because you guys are so smart, you don't need it.
Well, with
No,
that,
that's never true.
I have a question. Well, with that said, though, I know that there's a second part to it for a more advanced course. I signed up for that one. How much more advanced is it? And do you think that participating in the first one lays a necessary foundation to participate in the second one?
No, because I could probably email to you the presentations that will be used.
Okay.
And for the advanced one,
Elias, we're ready to go.
there is a lot of information from the first one that's covered again. So it gives you background.
Okay, thank you.
I'll speak more about this later if you want, Angel.
Ebenezer, can you email me the attendance sheet, please?
I don't have that. Lee's gonna may send it to you. I'm gonna look for that, but I don't have it right
All
now.
right, so let's get started. So we have 43 panelists, out of which some are.
Can't hear you, Eleazar.
Can
You got to boost your input
you hear me?
better.
Okay, so I was just saying that we have on my list, on my panelist list, we have about 40 panelists, out of which I'm assuming that there are public members, some DOT presenters, and some other people that I can recognize because I just see a bunch of numbers. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 6:39. Welcome each and every one of you guys for making the time and making the effort to be here tonight or this evening. There's beautiful weather out. It's been kind of hot, so that makes this effort especially appreciative for you guys to be here. So we're gonna start by adopting June's agenda. Can I get some ayes?
We need a motion first.
So move.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I move to adopt. Curtis.
All right, can we get a motion to adopt?
Curtis, that would be a second. Maria already moved.
Great. So June's agenda motion adopted. Moving along to the adopting the May 2020 minutes. Can we get a motion?
So moved. No, we don't have May minutes. We have the April minutes.
April minutes. So we're gonna have to approve those first, right?
Right. So I
Right.
make a motion that we approve the April minutes.
Second.
Second.
Who was that?
Maria.
Okay.
All right.
Is
So
there,
Chair-
and I'll have the May minutes next month, next meeting.
Any nays? Any abstentions? No? All in favor? On the chair's report, there's many things to do, but I'm gonna now take this opportunity to do something to what I think is priority, which is a presentation spearheaded and quarterbacked by our chair of TNT, David Abavian, on a Department of Transportation city bike presentation on how they're moving forward with their future and the plans that they have for Uptown Manhattan and the installation of city bikes, making them available for underserved communities and so forth. So I don't know each one of you guys' names. So if you guys kind of mute yourself and start the presentation for the next 10 minutes, we'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone, and hello. I'm Jennifer Santa Ynez. I'm the Manhattan Deputy Borough Commissioner at the New York City Department of Transportation. And I wanted to thank Community Board 12 for hosting us tonight. We had presented to the CB12 Traffic and Transportation Committee earlier this month, and we're happy to return tonight to be here to present the plans to the full board and share some time with you this evening. I also want to extend a thank you to all of our elected officials and your dedicated staff who are joining us on tonight's call. It's always nice to see a lot of familiar faces and attendee participant names on our virtual meetings. So tonight I'm joined by my colleagues from the Manhattan office, Lyle Blackwood and Jackie Lazaro, as well as my colleagues from the bike share team, Mabel Kessler and Jesse Cabrera. Jesse is the bike share outreach coordinator, and he'll be walking us through some slides tonight to provide more details on our plans to expand access to bike share across Washington Heights and Inwood over the course of the next year. So at this time, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Jesse.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you all of Manhattan Community Board 12 for having me today. So if I can just start, I need screen sharing capabilities.
And Jesse, while we're figuring that out, if you would be so kind as to make the PowerPoint presentation available to the office or to me so that I can crib notes from that.
Sure. So one thing, it is available online at our website, but I'll make sure to send it after this presentation.
Thank you.
Right. And that has been, those links have been sent to the board, but also for DOT team, or I don't know if this is best by Ebenezer and team. We can just put the links in the in the Q&A also maybe for people to pick up?
Debbie,
Thanks.
And one thing to note is the one that we're sharing today is an abbreviated sort of version. So the one that we'll share in the Q&A will have much more details in it.
Perfect. All right. Ebenezer, are you gonna be able to set Jesse up to share
Yes,
his screen?
we're working on that. We're working on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it looks like I can start sharing.
I think you can. I think you can.
Thanks, Ebenezer.
Dímelo.
All right. Great. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Great. So once again, thank you very much. Like I said, I'm going to go through an abbreviated presentation, hitting some important facts about the expansion of Citi Bike up into Washington Heights and Inwood. So just generally, what is Citi Bike? Citi Bike is New York City's bike share system, and it's a private-public partnership. The public aspect comes from us, DOT, and what we're responsible for is planning and outreach. And Lyft, who owns Citi Bike, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations and the maintenance of the equipment. One thing to note is that no city funds are used to operate Citi Bike. That comes from the users who pay to use the system and any sponsorships that Lyft has. And what we're in the midst of is the phase 3 expansion. So if you see on this map, that light blue area is the sort of first phase of Citi Bike, which was in 2013. After that, a couple of years later, into that royal blue area, we expanded into the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, into Queens for the first time, and deeper into Brooklyn. And what we're in the middle of now is our phase 3 expansion, all that dark blue area that you see on the map. And that includes going into Brooklyn going to the Bronx for the first time, completing Manhattan, and going deeper into neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens, such as Corona Elmhurst in Queens and Sunset Park in Brooklyn. This will happen over the next 5 years up until 2024. And all in all, after all is said and done, there will be about 40,000 bikes distributed across the entire service system. So the installation timeline that we have planned for Community Board 12 specifically is broken up into 2 parts. This summer, we expect to install Citi Bike stations in the southern half of the board, so from 155th Street right up until 184th Street. That would encompass about 30 stations. And later, we're going to come back and finish off the rest of the community board all the way up to 220th Street. If you can see this map, the reason why we're doing this is we want to create this sort of contiguous, equal service area across Manhattan and the Bronx. So we created a draft plan for station locations within Manhattan Community Board 12, and the 2 main sort of considerations are our own planning and technical siting guidelines and community outreach. And as Jennifer mentioned, we presented this plan to the Traffic and Transportation Committee on June 1st. So public outreach, there's a couple of sort of facets of it. So one of the ways we collected outreach was through a public workshop held in January. And this public workshop gave people a short presentation of what Citi Bike is. And we presented a map, as you see on this top image here. We presented a map asking people, hey, where would you like to see Citi Bike stations, or where wouldn't you like to see Citi Bike stations? And people placed stickers on the map, and that's how we collected feedback there. In addition, you can see at the Inwood Library, we went out to do pop-up community outreach. And what that entails is we went to different libraries and rec centers, and we set up and asked people, hey, the same thing like we did in the workshop, just smaller and abbreviated, and people were able to choose, yes, I would like to see city-based stations here, or no. And at the same time, we had a online feedback portal map open for about a month and a half. Actually, is closer to 2 months. And people were, again, able to drop in pins and say, yes, I want to see a city bike station here or no. And in addition to that, we have stakeholder meetings with places such as the New York Port Authority, the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, different parks, night shift facilities, to make sure that their input is taken into account as well. And this is the more planning side of what we're looking for when we put stations down. So one thing that we're looking for is a high density of stations, so that you're never more than a 3 to 5 minute walk from any point within the station. We want it to be a reliable transportation system. So we don't want you, if there's like an empty station, we don't want you to have to walk 15, 20 minutes until you find another station. We generally like to add larger stations adjacent to large very popular destinations such as transit hubs or supermarkets or things like that, where there's going to be a lot more foot traffic, and generally smaller ones in residential areas. And the actual siting of the station, there's other things we have to consider, such as utilities, manholes, street furniture, trees, sidewalk width, to make sure that nothing really gets impeded when we place a station down. So like I said, we combined all that outreach and our siting guidelines and made this draft plan, of which we presented to Community Board 12, the Transportation Committee. It's available right now on our website, nyc.gov/bikeshare, the Maps and Plans tab, and you can just scroll down until you see Manhattan Community Board 12. And we're still accepting feedback on these stations. If there's something that we didn't think about and you think a station should be moved for whatever reason, you can send your feedback via 2 different options. One is contacting Jennifer and her folks at the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office, numbers right there, or you can email us directly, us being the bike share unit, at this email address. We're gonna be accepting feedback for another week up until June 30th, so we can synthesize everything and make sure that we have a plan that best works for the community, with installation happening later this summer. And like I said, that was a quick abbreviated version. We can provide a longer presentation that has stuff such as ridership stats and pricing and some more detailed information about our planning process. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll field any questions.
And if I may, Eli, if you wouldn't mind, and I'm sure people have questions or they want to make observations, I just want people to understand what the process is from here. So I will be consolidating feedback from CB12 board members, combining that with our minutes from our meeting on June 1st, which had, again, board member feedback as well as some public feedback. And I'll be sending that out before the deadline of June 30. This is not a resolution item, so our opportunity will be in that manner. Anybody from the public obviously can go direct to DOT. I understand, Eli really wants to move the agenda, and I think, and I'm supportive of that. I just want to capture that when you do have a chance to look at the map, and I hope people already did, that the hottest station and the only one that there were sort of 2 that had issues in particular, and number 1 on that list was a station that you'll see on the map at West 157th. There's a variety of reasons why a number of board members, and thanks to Maria Luna, Curtis, Wayne, etc., who were able to provide pictures and very specific feedback. That will be sort of one area. So I understand people are going to want to talk tonight, but know that I have captured, if you have provided that information, I certainly do have that. Second is the station at 181st in Cabrini. We've had a number of people comment on that station. And our first vice chair actually did a whole write-up for me that included 2 other stations to comment on as well. So with that, I certainly open it to questions, but people should rest assured that if you've already provided information, that I have that, and I'll have Omar back me up on sort of reviewing everything to make sure that we haven't missed anything, etc.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Debbie.
Thank you,
Hi,
Debbie.
everyone. This is Catherine. I see you, Maria Luna, and we'll add you to stacks. We have 5. I want to just raise 6 now. So I'm going to just quickly demonstrate again for folks who don't know how to raise their hand. At the bottom of the screen, you will see the participants tab, and there's 89 of you. So or us. So the best way is to raise your hand via the raise hand function. So once you click at the participants, you're going to see all of our names, and there is on the bottom right, it's going to say more with a little arrow, and that's where you click and you hit, or sorry, excuse me, at the end, yeah, that's where you click and you hit raise. I'm now a co-host, so it's a little different, but that's where you go to raise hand. If you have trouble, you can text me. So we're going to start stacks. There's 6.
I got a quick procedural thing.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of questions in the chat that relate to noise and traffic and stuff. I just want to let people know that those issues will be addressed later in the agenda, in the district manager's report, in the different committee reports. Don't think that we're ignoring you, even though we're not answering those questions right now. We're just focused on this item, but we will get to those things.
All right. Thank you, Liz, for the
One other
clarification.
procedural question. How do
wait
people
a
sign
second.
up for, the public session? Because I think a
Can
lot of
we-
those,
Are we, first, Ebenezer or whoever's the host, I need you to mute everyone across the board, because there's someone who has an open microphone. I'm hearing something that is really kind of like bothering each and every one of us. So, Catherine, I know that Sally posed a question. She should really raise her hand so that we can get it in some sort of order. Who had their hands raised prior to Sally's? Oh, is she the first? Is she the first one?
Yeah, so I'm going to go in order. So first is Isidro, followed by Danielle.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jesse.
1 second. 1 minute questions and 2 minute rebuttals, so we can speed up the process a bit. Thank you.
Hi, Jesse. Great work on the presentation, and even better job in minimizing the impact on the local parking spots. I know that it's difficult, but I'm glad that you do your best. So when we met the committee, I emphasized the fact that this has to be accessible, and to the points that I raised were that accessibility as far as the common people who don't have credit cards or don't have debit cards, that you should have some type of technology similar perhaps to what the Metro card is all about, where common people can have access to these bikes, because I think that everyone should have access to the bikes, because I think it's a critical aspect of your service. Secondly, instructions also should be displayed in Spanish. It's a Spanish-speaking community that needs to have the attention of everyone, and I'm sure that you will come through that, because I don't think it's difficult. But the most important thing is obviously the fact that we need to have equal access and provide some type of options where clients can buy some type of cards and have access to the bikes. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isidro. Oh, I just had something quickly to say. We did note that the issue of people who are unbanked, I did note that, and I've been, I raised the point to Lyft, who owns Citi Bike, that this is an important thing. As for the Spanish sort of instructions, a lot of our bikes and kiosks do come in sort of have bilingual instructions on it. So rest assured that that's something that's definitely we can do going up into CB12.
Thank you, Jess. Kat? Who's the
Danielle.
first person? Danielle?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Thank you for your presentation. So I have a bunch of questions.
Make them all 1 minute.
I'm not sure if this was covered during the Traffic and Transportation Committee, so I'm just going to sort of read them off. I guess the first thing I want to say is I was on the Traffic and Transportation Committee for almost 2 years, and I was unaware that this was an upcoming project in the neighborhood, and I didn't hear about any of those meetings that were opportunities to provide feedback. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. I was wondering what the impact of Citi Bike, if you've looked into this at all, what the impact has been on local businesses, specifically bike businesses, because we do have one on Dykeman. Another thing I wanted to know is when you talk about outreach, who exactly you outreached to? So I would want to know demographics, age. You mentioned Port Authority, but that's not in our district. Also, this seems like a lot of stations, so I'm wondering how this is going to impact parking, sidewalks, and two other quick things. I'm wondering for people that might not have credit cards, what options there are for those folks. And then the last thing I'm wondering is I actually am a bike rider recently with COVID to preserve my mental health, and I've nearly been hit/killed several times. So I'm wondering what efforts or what steps you might take to help with safety in the neighborhood, just because it is a very busy and congested area.
Yes,
thank
before
you.
you begin,
Yeah, sure.
I want each and every one of us to please pay extremely careful attention to the questions and the answers. We have the tendency to ask the same questions 5 minutes later after it's been answered. So please, just bear with us. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries. In terms of, city bike and, regular bike traffic, there's this sort of, I guess, perception that there's a competing sort of use between city bike and personal bikes. And that's not necessarily always the case. People who don't have a bike may have a variety of reasons. Some of it could be like they just don't have space in their tiny New York City apartment, or they don't want to deal with maintenance, or they don't have, they don't know how to, they don't know how to navigate, bike shops and all this. So this sort of eliminates that sort of barrier for entry. So we don't really see them as competing sort of uses. And I'll answer the other thing about safety in Washington Heights. And one thing that we did mention during the community meeting is we have this, Mayor de Blasio announced in 2019, this Green Wave initiative. And that is to increase bicycle infrastructure, not only in bike share expansion areas, but throughout the 5 boroughs. And that includes, physical infrastructure and education of the best the rules in the road, the rules of the road. So that's something that has already been in motion. And whenever there is any sort of safety projects, it would come through the community board before anyone else. And quickly, last thing, so I don't go over my time, the meeting that we had was in coordination with CB12, the outreach meeting. And on top of that, the pop-up meetings were in the libraries in Community Board 12 as well. So they would just pop up and we just showed up, and whoever was inside at the time, we were able to speak to.
Thanks, Jess.
Next up is Francisco Lopez.
Hello, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Jesse, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you and taking the time to speak with us. Couple questions. How much parking is being sacrificed for these city bikes? 1. 2, when you guys get together and discuss the communities that you guys are trying to be active in, how much conversation is surrounded around need
So I'll answer that second question first. So this expansion was announced back in July 2019. And if I can reshare it quickly. So this expansion happened in 2019. And let me go back here. So this expansion was announced in 2019, and in that expansion, in that announcement, one thing that we want to make sure is that wherever we expand to, there's sort of a contiguous and continuous boundary. So let's say, for instance, if we wanted to expand to, this northern tip of the Western Bronx, it wouldn't have made sense to, first have all of this in Manhattan 12 and then leave all this empty and have, the little tippy top filled in. So we want to make sure is wherever we expand to, we're expanding a lot nearby. So whenever you take a bike, you're not just suddenly in an area that has no sort of, that has no city bike stations, because that's a transit, that wouldn't really fly. In terms of parking, we are still sort of analyzing and making sure how much parking loss, and we're trying to balance everything out. I believe the number that was sort of estimated back in the transportation committee was, I believe, roughly around 60, but we're still sort of trying to balance all the needs of the community.
Thank you.
Jesse, can you just provide the split between sidewalk stations and street locations and how many total are in this proposal? I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me.
I don't have it right in front of me either, but I believe it's like more or less I believe there's 15 sidewalk and 13 roadbed, or it might be the other way around. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Next up, sorry, we have Maria Luna.
Okay, Maria. Maria, you unmute yourself. Would you? Maria. Who's the next person?
We'll keep it moving then.
Oh, wait.
She had it? Okay. Maria.
Can I say one quick thing until the next person? You guys figure out who's next?
No, wait, I got the next person already. It's Barbara.
Oh.
Wait, can Maria do *6? Does that work for her? Oh, there she is.
No, okay, very briefly. The gentleman from DOT just mentioned that this discussion started in 2019 in July. You remember, we don't meet in July, August until September. So the fact is that the information that got to us about the city bike came a little too late before they made some decisions or some planning. I am not against bikes. I just want to make sure that the two stations that are more that we have been discussing, 157th Street and 181st Street. I saw you, Debbie, that at the last meeting on June 1st, that we are going to put like a group of people to get that live around our area, near those areas, to make recommendations and to see how we could really make plan not only with the city but just with the community. Parking is a problem in our difficult community, and I think that we were supposed to be having a meeting, something like tomorrow, the 24th, about coming up with some recommendation, especially about 157 on 181st Street. What is that? I believe that Bruce, the Simon, Wayne, myself, that live within about 5 or 10 blocks from from this particular area, and Jim Berlin up on the 181st, we're going to have the opportunity. So can we make a recommendation like as a group as opposed to individuals, or to make it more,
Yeah. This is the first I heard about any such meeting.
Sorry.
Yes, I had an email about something that we were supposed to have, few days. So they gave us few dates to see which one would be, better for all of us. And tomorrow, I think it's June 24 in the morning with something, something like that. But I'm trying to find my emails and my answers.
Who is they?
wait, wait,
I'm happy to add some information.
You know, Bruce Robertson's design on the lip, we have, you know, right here on Riverside Drive.
okay, Maria, give me a second.
Okay.
So what was the final question, Maria? So we can have Debbie answer.
Do we have time to make their final recommendation? Okay. And will they listen to us? Because I mean, we are the one that live around here in this, you know, in the vicinity of the 157th Street and you know, by Broadway and Morgan Place and things like that.
So the question is, is there still time to make recommendations before
by June 30th?
The plan takes place by June 30th.
By June 30th? Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Debbie,
wait. I'm not sure where the gap is here. We're a community board and our committee received this. I don't want to see a subset of self-appointed just because you live near there. We have a process. If there's a gap in the process, as I've described it, of course, I want to know about that, but I have captured the points about 157th as well as the excellent, and it's not just one suggestion about alternative sites for that. And so the process again is that while this isn't a resolution item, the community board comments from our community board members will go back to DOT in a consolidated form. So I'm not sure what the gap is. I feel like, is it that you don't believe I'm going to pass that, or like, am I missing something?
No, before it becomes a discussion, I think that we all.
We're not going to have an argument. We're not going to have an argument.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to. If there's something wrong with the process, let's talk about that process.
Yes, let me interject.
And our board.
Let me interject. I think that we all here be long enough to understand that the process is that suggestions and recommendations go to the committee, and then it goes past the committee. I think that's very clear in each and every one of our minds. So I think that's it. Next question, please.
Yeah, so just to let folks know, because I do see folks who are raising their hand. We're wrapping up the points with Barbara and Domingo, which was 7 hands. As Debbie said, any comments, any extra questions can go straight to the committee because there's still time to compile all of this information. So go ahead, Barbara.
My question is this. Recently, the MTA has acknowledged that people of lower income would receive special Metro cards to have a reduced rate in order to ride. I want to know, since Lyft is running this, if people, especially because we have many lower income people in Community Board 12, if there will be based on like the Metro card status or some other indicator that they will receive a reduced rate, because I believe the standard rate for a Metro, for a city bike is something like $90 a month, which is not cheap. So
it's literally the question that Isidro asked 4 questions ago.
No, he didn't ask about a reduced rate.
Excellent question. DOT has got a very good answer on that.
Okay, he did not ask that, Liz. But really, that's rude. Now, the other question I have is this. It says in your document that the city doesn't have any money that it has to do toward the funding of this, but in the taking up of streetscape for the some of the road space, some places, like for example, when I see Citi Bike in the East Village, they've taken up many places on the road space, which would normally be metered parking. So the city is giving up metered parking for free to Citi Bike, I think. Now, which spaces are you in Washington Heights? I think, for example, along 181st Street, it is metered parking. How much are we then in essence subsidizing Citi Bike?
Okay. I'm sure, Debbie, can you mute it? Thank you. Mute Barbara, please. Thank you.
So I can answer that first question regarding pricing. So for pricing, one thing to note, it's approximately $15 a month for Citi Bike. So it comes out to be roughly $170 for the entire year for unlimited usage of Citi Bike. So it's much less than the 90 or so that you might have thought it is. And secondly, even though it's only $15 a month, we have a further reduced rate for people that live in NYCHA or people who receive food stamps. or are part of the SNAP program. And that rate would be $5 a month for a total of $60 a year for the entire year. You can find more information in the longer sort of presentation that we gave the Transportation Committee.
Thank you. Who's the next person? Catherine?
It's Domingo.
Okay.
Yeah, so my concern again is around parking, because it seems like you have different sectors of the community already being able to voicing their concerns. My concern is more around what's gonna be done in 184th Street and beyond 181st Street, because I'm assuming that DOT already canvassed that area, but there's a big set, like there's a lot of restaurants and dining areas which already limit the amount of parking spaces for the community. So taking further more, I think will create a sort of catastrophic, very chaotic area. So I would like to know the breakdown of parking spaces being lost north of 181st Street.
Yeah, so right now we don't have any sort of plans for north of 184th Street right now. The City Bike stations only go up to 184th Street.
I said north of 181st, 181.
So I can quickly, it looks quick, like doing a rough estimate here, there seems to be 2 roadbed stations between 181st and 184th. I don't know the exact specific how large those stations are off the top of my head. So they would, in that short section, it should be anywhere between 5 or 6.
5 or 6 per station.
No, in total.
In total, all right.
But again, I think, and I have to reiterate, was there like some sort of impact study done on the impact that it's going to have if we take away those parking spaces in an area that's so frequented by customers?
Curtis?
Actually, wait, if we're taking another hand, it's Sally.
No, because he was there. Yeah. So Sally was there in the beginning.
Yeah, we're following the order. Yeah, we're following another order.
7:15, yes.
So Sally has
Yeah, and others have been waiting too.
Right, I have my hand up too.
Barbara actually got my question. I just really wanted, from a process standpoint, to let people know how they're going to get on the public session list.
We got that, Sally. We'll announce it in a second.
Who's the next person?
Hold on, let me go back to the.
Daryl or Curtis? Because I don't see Curtis.
No, it was actually Gerard.
Right,
Okay, Gerard.
I'll be quick, This is to City Bikes. It's related to 2 questions I had that are still unanswered in the committee. Question was parking. I made it very clear that this is an easy ask for you to prepare a little sketch. There is absolutely no reason you should be coming to us without an exact count on parking spots at a loss. It's disingenuous, and you're not seriously engaging us when you can't bring them at a minimum, roughly that. You just didn't bring it. Second question that was never answered still tonight. In the context of the tremendous sacrifice that residents and businesses have made and will continue to make, I asked about COVID spreaders. These bikes are COVID spreaders. You said you couldn't answer. You gave me a vague thing that it gets cleaned a little. We are being asked as residents and businesses to work at less occupancies. These businesses are still sacrificing. I think you owe the community an answer. How do you make this not a COVID spreader? And they're going to ask a business to not do business on the street. But meanwhile, City Bike is by far a huge COVID spreader. How do you keep this clean, and how do you keep the public safe? That was my question.
Okay.
Yeah, so like going back to what we said earlier in the committee, so one thing to know is that yes, they do get cleaned every so often when a maintenance person has to go fix the bike, or when they're parked adjacent to hospitals such as the one on 169th Street and Fort Washington Avenue. So the city has been working with Lyft to sort of proactively monitor and try to combat the spread of COVID-19. And let me see the first.
So I'm not going to do back and forth, but businesses have to register when they're cleaning their spots, these restaurants and everything else. They have to have a clear definition, and I'll stop now. But why don't you have to do the same thing businesses are being asked to do?
Can you clarify?
I think he's saying that the requirements for businesses to clean through the process of COVID are not the same as the one that you've been explaining since you were at the committee level. So he'd like to have a clear and transparent answer as to the same question that has been asked twice and nothing is being specifically answered.
Well, I believe I did answer the question about COVID and the cleanliness that the bikes go through. But in terms of the first sort of parking question, I can let Jennifer answer that.
Certainly, and Gerard, we can try to get additional clarification as to what additional measures Lyft is taking for cleaning. We can certainly send you the link to their website that kind of outlines their practices to stop the spread. But just in general, it's up to us. It's up to New Yorkers to practice the core four that the city DOH, like the Department of Health tries to share, right? Just like good hygiene, maintain 6 feet of distance, wear a face covering, and there's another one, and it's escaping my mind. But we do try to stress that all bike share users practice good hygiene. And we do see that a lot of customers are following those practices. So going to the first question about parking, we did speak about this at the committee level. And our process is this, we don't come to the board with a final set plan, formal surveys that are completed. We come to the board and we share our draft plan. So these are locations that haven't yet been formally cited. We're looking to get your feedback on all of these sites. We did bring an average station size, right? So I think it was 25 dock counts to the committee level as well to kind of give you a general idea of how many spaces would be taken up in the parking lane, as well as how much feet would be taken up on the sidewalk. So if there's any particular location that you're kind of, you want more information on, please share that with Debbie, reach out to us. We're trying to provide as much information as we can that we have available at the moment.
Thank you. Before I wrap it up and move on to the next report, Daryl, do you still have your hands up?
I do, yeah. Just real quick, because I know this was an issue with at least one of the sites. Some of the areas are under construction. Do you know how much that's going to impede putting these sites up? And can you explain how that's going to work and how you're coordinating with other agencies?
Sure, yeah. Whenever there's construction, what we try to do is find a suitable area that's nearby that sort of satisfies that 3 to 5 minute sort of station density that we want. So let's say, for instance, this will be something that's, that will wrap up maybe in a month or two. What will probably happen is we'd hold off on that particular station. And then once the construction clears up, then we would install the station. But let's say, for instance, it's a much longer term construction, then we would do what I just said is we'll try to find somewhere else nearby, place it temporarily there, and then once that construction wraps up, place it back into the original location.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
I have
much.
a concern. It's Mary.
Thank
I'm
you.
not able to do the hand raise thing, but I do have some comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
My concern is about the sidewalk stations and the difficulty with the narrowing path to get by with wheelchairs and walkers or people who need, physical assistance, where two people have to walk together because one is holding the other, or, if they're blind, that sort of thing. So I have a big concern about that because we have enough issues with, sidewalk cafes and all that sort of thing impeding and, disabling the disabled to really to be able to get by on those sidewalks. So I just want to put that out there, okay?
Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great concern. Would like to make a comment before we?
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a question. One thing to note, Mary, is that one of the sort of considerations is sort of ADA accessibility. So if we were to put a station in and it would just make the sidewalk too narrow for people to comfortably walk through, we wouldn't put a station on that sidewalk. But thank you very much for raising that concern.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Jennifer. Debbie, thank you for bringing this touchy and important subject to a general meeting. It's usually not the norm, but I felt that we needed everyone's input, and it's usually done better at a general meeting rather than a committee meeting because we're all so occupied and doing so many other things. So I felt that it was a need to do this. So I like to get your apologies first for myself for bringing it to this level. So thank you, Jennifer, again. Thank you, Jesse. It's been great, and Debbie. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Ebenezer, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always is a pleasure being here as your district manager and give you my report. First, fireworks and noise in the district. This is not a CB12 Manhattan issue. This is an issue happening citywide. All over the city, we have the problem with the firework. I have been receiving a lot of complaints regarding fireworks and noise in the district for the last 3 weeks. Last week at the district service cabinet meeting, I had a very thorough discussion with the 33rd precinct and 34th precinct. They informed me that they are aware of what's happening and they would like to find a way how to tackle this one. So to the residents that have been calling me, emailing me, the police is aware, the fire department is aware, and this is a problem that is not only on Community Board 12, it's citywide problem. I believe the mayor's office and the police department in general are working to find out the way to stop how to bring the firework to the city of New York. It happened in citywide. It's not only happening in CB12, it's happening where I live as well. And believe me, it's not comfortable. You get scared because suddenly, you got a big explosion and you don't know what it is. So the police department is working with that. The fire department shared a telephone number last week. Is the 718-722-3600. And the fire department said that every time you hear fireworks being exploded, to call them. I believe this number has been shared with board members and board members have been using it. And the person at the fire department said, listen, I am only one person, I am just recording it. Nevertheless, this is the instruction that we received from the fire department, and I encourage you to continue calling 718-722-3600 and report any firework complaint that you may have. Also call 311. As you know, yesterday, the city reopened, give permission, to go to phase 2 and give permission to the restaurant to use the sidewalk and the parking lane to operate, to serve food outdoors. Many restaurants I observed yesterday in the district that they took this very literally and they are placing a lot of chairs along the in front of the establishment, also by the curbside. They put in tents, etc., etc. We have several discussions as a district manager citywide, try to flesh out and get all the guidelines for the Department of Transportation, which is the agency regulating this activity on the street. The Department of Transportation have more questions than answers at this time from the district manager and these guidelines, and we'll continue having some meetings. Nevertheless, I would like to encourage every restaurant owner to go to NYC DOT, New York City DOT, and find out the guidelines. There is NYC open restaurant seating criteria. The restaurant owner can use the sidewalk adjacent to the restaurant, and also the parking lanes in front of the restaurant can be used. And that is a criteria, how many feet, 8 feet need to be left open for the pedestrian to walk, and the restaurant owners, they should provide the barricades to protect the seating area, et cetera, et cetera. People are doing it. I observe that people that are not following the guidelines from Department of Transportation, the enforcement, nobody wants to enforce the restaurant owners and make it pay big fines. Or the other one, on the contrary, the city want that every restaurant be able to operate and also to be successful after everything that happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. So please, restaurant owners, go to New York City DOT and see the seating criteria for the restaurants operation during this situation. New York City DOT make an announcement, the mayor's office make an announcement that 181st Street will be converted in a busway. Immediately, we called DOT to find out what it is, and I have a discussion at the District Service Cabinet meeting. DOT is not sure really what's going to happen at 181st Street. I was told by DOT representative that what they mean by busway is a variation of what had been done on 14th Street. They don't have the details. DOT, want also to create a community advisory board to go over the details of how the busway gonna be implemented at 181st Street. The Department of Parks and Recreation informed at the District Service Cabinet meeting that 4 swimming pools will be open in Manhattan during this summer, but not High Bridge swimming pool, because this site is being used as a COVID-19 testing center. The HRA, the Department of Human Administration, informed that they are replacing all the air conditioners over 5 years to the people that are in the program receiving air conditioner by HRA. So if you have an air conditioner given to you by HRA and is 5 years old, they will be replacing, and also you can apply for new air conditioners as well. I want to let everybody know that the office, the Community Board 12, has a Facebook page. This meeting is being broadcasted right now live in Facebook and also in YouTube. And we encourage everyone to visit and become a friend of our Facebook page. The name of the page is Office Facebook page, and for CB12, and be as a member, log in, send your request, and you can see all the information. We're planning to reboot this Facebook page during the summertime and be able to post all the information, important information from the Community Board 12. Also, our YouTube channel, Office NYC CB12M, is available to everyone. And you can also see all the meetings that had happened since April until now in our YouTube channel that is available to everyone. During the summertime, the office is going to be, revamping the website and also the Facebook and the YouTube channel. And we are preparing to integrate the office with the new challenge and the new changes that are going to happen when we come back in September. Thank you very much. This is the end of my report. Is there any question?
Yeah, first we have Domingo, followed by Wayne.
Yes, Domingo?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, Ebenezer, when you have information like that to share with businesses, that you actually communicate with folks who chair these committees, so that we could try to potentially send an email out or add it to the agenda. And as far as the bus lane goes, is there anything happening where like a community conversation about it, or is just they're doing it and that's the fine? Because as we know, we have representatives here from DOT, but there seems to be a certain level of cohesion when we work with them, and the mess that they leave is for us to deal with while they move on to another messy project.
Yes, Domingo, I agree 100% with you. The information that I gathered for this dining out, it was in a special meeting that was called at the last meeting last Friday. Really, I don't have anything to share but this information. As soon as I have something more concrete, the only thing that I have is a link to a website that I give it here. Anyone can get that one. once I have more concrete information, I will send it out. I send information out that I get. I send it to our chairperson, and I send it to a few business owners. But yes, I will be sending it to you as well. But it's not much information there to give out yet. But the Manhattan district managers, we are working very diligent to find the details, and we're going to be sharing with you as soon as possible. And regarding West 131st Street, also we had a conversation with Department of Transportation at the district service cabinet meeting. I asked and tried to flesh out this and got as much information that I can, and I share with you. DOT is willing to have a community group to work and find the details on this one. The details, what's going to happen exactly at 101st Street, we don't know yet. And everybody has the concerns, 101st Street is not an easy cookie to put there because it's the entrance and the exit from the borough going to the Bronx. And diverting the traffic around is a big mess, and we are concerned as soon that the very first moment we have the news. So I'm going to get back to you, and I'm going to let anyone hang in there. As soon as I get information, I'm going to share with everybody.
Yeah.
The next question, please.
It's Wayne, and to close this section is Steve Simon.
Okay, good.
So Ebenezer, quick question. I think it was either at the most recent executive committee meeting, or it might have been last month's board meeting. We were discussing CB12's Facebook and YouTube channels, and it was pointed out that when you send out the emails, those links are available at the bottom of the email. And we discussed sending, all the board members or the public in general an email, just reminding them that if they scroll down to the bottom of the email, they can access and subscribe to community boards, Facebook and YouTube from there. And my question is, was that done? And if it wasn't done, would it make sense to add, sort of a footer to all outgoing emails advising that, you can, access and subscribe to our, Facebook and YouTube channels by clicking below?
Yes, we do have those footage in the staff emails, and we send it out. And
yeah, but there's nothing saying that, what we discussed last time. We discussed sending around an email. There were a lot of folks asking, how can they subscribe? How can they? And
yes, it was sent out. It was sent out, Wayne, at the beginning. We're going to send out again, and we're going to, like I said before, we're going to be working to revamp and make sure everybody knows about our YouTube channel and Facebook account as well. Next question.
Wait, I think that what the borough president does is in her daily emails, there's a live link at the top of it that says something like, did someone forward this to you? Did you not get it yourself? If not, subscribe here. I don't mean to put words into Wayne's mouth, but I think what he's saying is that in all of the office's outgoing email, there should be a subscribe link in the email.
Yes,
right.
This is very good suggestion. This is very good suggestion, and we're going to take it in mind when we're going to do the revamp during the summertime. Next question.
Steve Simon.
Steve, good to see you. Good to hear from you. Steve?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
All right, this may be a question for Jonathan. Do we have to tell all the people who subscribed to our previous Facebook page that they now have to subscribe to the new one?
Yeah, we had this discussion before. I don't know if Jonathan is able to count that.
It doesn't work like that.
We had the discussion before, Steve, in the last executive committee meeting and the last meeting. We're working on that to try to do the best. Okay, I think is no more question there. Thank you very much. Have an excellent summer. I will see you in September. God bless you all.
Thank you, Ebenezer, for your presentation and information.
I did have my hand raised. Can I ask a question about the district manager report?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
May I just add a detail to the district manager's report?
You may.
So just really quickly, I am forwarding to both you and Ebenezer a report that our transportation policy analyst, Paul, wrote right after that last minute DOT meeting, summarizing it and providing the relevant links so that you can share it with the entire board. I had only shared it with the transportation chair because it was a DOT meeting, and I, figured, Ebenezer was at the meeting, so I didn't, need to do anything. But if that's helpful at all to as a summary, please use that.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to the public session. Catherine, can you, I think besides Marty Mr. Collins, you're the
Yeah.
first one, and then you just send me the rest of the people.
So for folks who are on, and we apologize that this information did not go out previously. So if you are attending this meeting and you want to speak during the public session for 2 minutes, please use the raise hand function. If you can't figure that out or having trouble, feel free to put your name in the Q&A. And when it's your turn, we will select and unmute you. So we're going to start first with Martin Collins, and we do have caps. And again, it's a 2-minute presentation first.
Good evening. I'll just take a minute of your time. Thank you very much. I'm Martin Collins, the Uptown Art Stroll Coordinator from the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance. And as you know, the Art Stroll has gone virtual this year through July 30th. Every Thursday evening at 7:30, we feature a Washington Heights Inwood or West Harlem artist. And this Thursday, we have a cavalcade of paintings that have been purchased by one of the Community Board 12 members over the past 17 Uptown Art Strolls. And this Thursday at 7:30 on Facebook Live and on Zoom, Liz Ritter, your Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee Chair, will share with everybody the cavalcade of paintings that she's purchased from folks from 135th Street to 220th Street over almost 2 decades. It's a wonderful, concise resume of basically the last 20 years of art strolls. And we had a glimpse of that this afternoon with Liz, and we look forward to more of it on Thursday evening. It's a 1-hour program, 7:30 to 8:30. So please join us. You can go to artstroll.com, and I'll post the details in the chat box in a moment for everybody. And it'll be on Zoom and Facebook Live this Thursday evening at 7:30.
Promote Gail, please. Hi. So thank you, Mr. Collins. Sorry to cut you off.
Thank you.
Sorry, I should have muted myself. The next person before we get one of the most important public members we have on our meeting today. Who's the next person, Kathy?
It's William Beltran.
Okay. Mr. Beltran?
You can go ahead and unmute yourself, William.
William?
Okay. So I guess we're going to go on to the next person, which is Joanny Rojas.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the next speaker? Rojas?
Joanny Rojas.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening to everyone.
Welcome, Joanny.
Yeah, that's my first time in your community board meeting. And I really appreciate that you guys hosting me today. I'm bringing up a situation that's going on in our neighborhood. I live by 170th Street between Broadway and Fort Washington. And the homeless situation around our neighborhood is out of control. Okay, it's at the time that sometime early in the morning, we even had to walk through the street because you cannot even walk in the sidewalk. And like this morning, it's basically, I was walking to go to work around 7 something in the morning. And the homeless people even using the drugs on the street, you know, and even getting high. It's like you basically need to walk in the street because you're afraid. You never know what can happen to you. So I think this is something that we have to address with everyone in the community, with the political people. I don't know how we can address the issue, so I bring it up to see how we can deal with the situation. So see if things can be resolved or even get better.
Okay, thank you so much, Joanny. Again, and welcome to your first meeting. You can also talk
Thank you.
to the Housing and Human
Thank you.
Services Committee.
No.
So we're gonna go on to the next person, which is Sean Riley.
Hi, can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So I'll go ahead and start. Hi, my name is Sean Riley, and I'm a researcher for Service Employees International Union Local 32BJ, which is a union of many different service workers. SEIU 32BJ represents approximately 1 in every 100 adults in New York City, including more than 2,800 who live or work here in Community Board 12. And for the last year and a half, we've supported Chipotle workers here in New York City struggling to better their working conditions. I'm here tonight because Chipotle is currently seeking community approval for restaurant wine licenses at 3781 Broadway and 4240 Broadway, though I see that the latter has been withdrawn for the moment. But for many reasons, 32BJ opposes both of these applications. The fast food industry disproportionately serves and employs underage youth. A recent study found that 14% of New York City fast food workers are teenagers. Chipotle appears to match these trends. The company targets teenagers with their marketing and was recently found to be the 3rd favorite restaurant brand amongst teenagers. Both of the proposed locations, 3781 Broadway and 4240 Broadway, are within 2,000 feet of a total of 12 different public schools. Unlike the rest of the fast food industry, Chipotle restaurants sell beer and liquor in various forms, including Patron margaritas and bottles of Corona. Although they hold far more liquor licenses than any other fast food company in New York City, over 80 in total, Chipotle's model can operate perfectly fine without alcohol. In New Jersey, for instance, all of their stores are dry. It is illegal in New York for minors under 18 to serve or handle alcohol, but in January, based on information provided to us by Chipotle employees, 32BJ filed complaints with the state liquor authority alleging that managers at 4 different Chipotle locations in Manhattan knowingly had minors as young as 16 mixing drinks and serving beer and liquor at their restaurants. This isn't the only law workers say Chipotle has broken. Workers across the city have reported violations of New York City's paid sick law and Fair Workweek law, which claims which the city has either settled with Chipotle or is still investigating.
36.
Over the last year, we've brought these concerns to Brooklyn Community Board 2, Queens Community Board 4, and Manhattan Community Board 4. All of them recommended against new liquor licenses that Chipotle had requested in their districts. Many Chipotle workers, many of whom have courageously continued staffing restaurants throughout the crisis, are coming forward to raise additional concerns about whether Chipotle is adequately protecting its workers and the public from COVID-19. One of them will be testifying tonight as well during the public comment period. I'd like to add that this has been an issue from the beginning of the company's response to the pandemic. In the first week of March, workers at 5 New York City restaurants went on strike after Chipotle
Catherine, the next person. I didn't hear the last part.
So what number was that?
I didn't hear the last part. Who? Can you put him back? Mr. Riley?
I'll do my best. Hold on.
Sorry, I realized I had gone over time there.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Shoot it. Because I think you were making a very important point, and I think everyone needs to hear your points.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll just continue. In the first week of March, workers at 5 New York City restaurants went on strike after Chipotle managers pressured workers to work sick with coronavirus symptoms, despite the mounting crisis of the pandemic. And studies that have come out since then show that there were likely already thousands of coronavirus cases in New York City by that point. We only recently learned of these license applications and unfortunately missed the June committee meeting, which is why we're here tonight. And so for all of the reasons mentioned, we ask that Community Board 12 oppose Chipotle's application for restaurant wine licenses at 3781 Broadway and 4240 Broadway. Thank you, especially for letting me go over time a little bit there.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Thank you. Appreciate your input. The next one up. Next public speaker.
That's Eduardo Ceballos.
Eduardo Ceballos, and then it'll wrap it up, right? Because I have another important speaker to come. That's important.
Yes, hi, this is Eduardo Ceballos speaking. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, you're perfect.
Yeah, hi. I work with 32BJ. I also have with me Theodora, who works for Chipotle, and she's going to be giving a little quick testimony based on what Sean was saying. So Theodora, tú puedes empezar, and I'll be translating since she speaks
I'm sorry,
Spanish.
can you please spell your name and the name of the other speaker?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Eduardo, E-D-U.
That part I have, the last name?
Sorry, so Z like in zebra, E, V like in Victor, A-L-L-O-S.
Okay.
And then the worker that I'll have here as well is Theodora, T-E-O-D-O-R-A, Flores, F-L-O-R-E-S.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Teodoro, tú puedes empezar.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Teodora y trabajo en Chipotle en 350 Quinta Avenida en el Empire State Building. Me gustaría hablar sobre los problemas en la compañía para la que yo trabajo que están afectando a los trabajadores y el público.
Hello, my name is Theodora, and I work at Chipotle on 350 Fifth Ave in Empire State Building. I'd like to talk about the issues at my company that affect both workers and members of the public.
El mes pasado, junto con trabajadores de otras dos tiendas en Manhattan, hicimos una queja ante la Administración de Seguridad y Salud Ocupacional, OSHA.
Last month, along with coworkers from 2 other Manhattan restaurants, I filed a complaint with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA.
Cuando Nueva York comenzó a cerrar a mediados de marzo, yo estaba de vacaciones y no volví a trabajar hasta el 6 de abril, cuando volví a trabajar de varios trabajadores de otra tienda, 680 Sexta Avenida, que cerró. Hacía turnos en mi tienda. Otro trabajador en la queja de OSHA de 680 Sexta Avenida mencionó que uno de los trabajadores de esa tienda había sido diagnosticado con coronavirus a fines de marzo, días después de trabajar un turno en su tienda.
So as New York began shutting down in mid-March, I was on a previously scheduled vacation and did not return to work until April 6th. When I did return to work, I learned that several crew members from another store, 686th Avenue, which had recently closed, were picking up shifts at my store. A coworker from 686th Ave told me that one of the crew members there had been diagnosed with coronavirus in late March, days after working a shift at the store.
Eduardo, this is the time, so I appreciate you should just make your point, and I'm sorry because I just have to respect everyone else's time.
Gotcha. So I guess just to sum it up, that more or less that Theodora was a part of a OSHA complaint, and Chipotle hasn't been doing enough to protect workers during the coronavirus. They haven't been following a lot of the requirements, and just implementing basic things like sneeze guards to protect workers. And they also have like a lot of other outstanding issues related to Fair Work Week laws as well. And basically, Theodora has children and she's lives in her neighborhood and she needs to protect herself and her family and her community as well.
Eduardo, thank you very much. Mr. Riley, Theodora, I think the public speakers are the pulse of our community. I really appreciate your input, and I think it's going to hold weight into the weight in our decisions. Thank you once again. Before we move on,
Eliezer, what number is it that they're talking about?
Chipotle in 180th in Broadway, that area there. I think it's on the minutes. I mean, it's on the
It's
agenda.
number 8. It's number 8. It's the one at Broadway and 157th Street. The other one is
Sorry.
not. Yeah.
My
The other one has
sorry.
been withdrawn.
Thank you, Steve, for
Ellie,
correcting.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, I also have a question.
Sorry, shouldn't we get extra time since they're doing translation in Spanish?
What was that?
I'm just
Should
wondering.
have extra time since she was doing translation in Spanish
They
because
should provide a double time or at least like an additional minute or something like that. I don't know if that's in the rules, but given the fact that we're not providing translation as a community board, I think we should provide additional time for that.
Well, we provide translations, but we didn't do it this time, but because we weren't prepared to have Eduardo's presentation. But I take your point, and I'm willing to give another minute just because it's an extremely reasonable request. So Eduardo, if you can have the lady speak again, we'll give you one more minute. Thank you, Danielle. Eduardo, if you can unmute yourself. Eduardo's gone. Steve? Eduardo, yes.
Un segundito, Theodora. Yeah, do you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Sorry. All right, yeah, so puedes empezar de nuevo, Theodora, de esa parte.
We have one more minute, that's what she said.
Me advirtió ni a mí ni a mis compañeros de trabajo en 350 Quinta Avenida que los nuevos trabajadores que recogían turnos en nuestra tienda habían estado expuestos al coronavirus. Mis codenunciantes informaron que los gerentes de Chipotle nunca les advirtieron que habían estado expuestos a compañeros de trabajo que habían sido expuestos en cuarentena por sospecha de coronavirus y que no tomaron precauciones legalmente requeridas para proteger a los trabajadores.
So Chipotle never warned me or any of my coworkers at 350 that the new crew members picking up shifts at our store had been exposed to coronavirus. My co-complainants reported that Chipotle managers never warned them that they had been exposed to coworkers that had been quarantined with suspected coronavirus and didn't take legally required precautions to protect workers and customers. So, Teodora, solo tuvimos un minuto más, so se va a cortar. Yeah.
Yeah, Edward, I'd like to add and just kind of like make the final statement.
Well, yeah, I think it was what we said before that, yeah, they're just not doing enough. They're not following some of the basic precautions. There was also a report in February that was released describing how Chipotle managers have pressured workers to work sick. So it's a company with a lot of issues as well.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you,
Thank you for
Daniel.
the extra time as well.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. You all credit goes to you. Now that we finalized our public session,
No, could I ask my question?
To Eduardo or O'Reilly, Mr. O'Reilly?
Either or both.
Okay.
Can I go ahead now?
Yeah, of course.
The specific applicant for these two locations is Chipotle Mexican Grill of Colorado, LLC. Is that the same legal entity that owns the other establishments that you referred to and where she worked?
Yeah, so I can answer that question. It is the same entity. Chipotle was founded in Colorado, so that's where the name comes from. That's their formal legal operating name, and they operate all of the 80-something locations that are here in the city.
So this is not a franchise with a separate owner. They're all owned centrally?
Correct. Chipotle is corporately operated. They don't franchise. It's not part of their business model.
Okay, that's important to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Eleazar?
Yes.
So I'm not asking a question about that. I just want because of the way the meeting records on Zoom, I just want to sort of read into the public record. There are a bunch of people who are throwing up questions in the chat regarding extreme noise levels, what's being done about the overwhelming amount of trash lining sidewalks and streets. I am concerned with the noise of, more concerned with the noise of parties than the noise of fireworks. Andrea Arroyo saying street parties are louder and longer than ever. They happen nightly and the noise is unbearable this year in Southern Washington Heights. What is being done? Extreme noise is a public health issue. We've got somebody on Hillside Avenue who's saying that, echoing that these are serious problems. We've got an anonymous attendee wanting to know why the 34th precinct isn't doing more about noise. And we've got somebody asking specifically about cars being left on jacks, which are dangerous. This is happening on Hillside Avenue, and also a lot of marijuana smoking on the corner of Hillside Avenue and Elwood. So I'm not sure why all of those folks didn't raise their hands to speak during the public session, but I felt that for our board members who may not be monitoring the chat, it's important for them to have the benefit of knowing that these are some of the questions and concerns that the public is raising. I'm not looking to answer them. That's not procedurally appropriate, but I wanted to just give voice to those questions.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for all the work. We're gonna have now the Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer give us some updates on the hard work that she's putting in. Glad to have you, Gail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you also for you and your colleagues participating in the Uptown reopening town hall last night with boards 9, 10, 11, and 12. There were huge numbers of chat and Q&A, and to me, that's always a measure of interest, and we're going to be trying to answer all the questions. So it was very long, very detailed. Thank you, because it was really helpful and people seem to enjoy it, and we need to keep working on that. So much appreciated. Number two, in terms of the restaurants, it's an ongoing discussion. I want to say 3 things that we've learned in the last, I don't know, half hour. One is that my understanding is that tomorrow morning, the city is going to release the portal information. There are 3,141 restaurants that have requested outdoor support dining. In the Bronx is 240, Brooklyn is 591, Queens 566, Staten Island 141, and Manhattan, no surprise, 1,603. And so we obviously have more, almost double of anybody else. So all the questions that I know is on everybody's mind, how is this going to work and so on, are more relevant in Manhattan than anywhere else. So tomorrow morning, the mayor is putting up a portal, is my understanding, listing all the restaurants that I just mentioned in terms of the numbers, mapped and searchable in different ways. Number two, the issue that Liz Ritter just brought up and that I hear about at every single community board is this tension between the need for the restaurants and the question of what they could or could not do, et cetera, et cetera. People can use the bathroom of the establishment. I'm on the Governor's Recovery Task Force. That came up at the town hall last night. Can that be done? And the answer is absolutely yes. But what the city is thinking of doing and thinking of is the word that I was told is a mediation process for restaurants that are having challenges and where there are complaints, and supposedly to use oath or a private organization called JAMS, which I probably should know, but don't. And apparently they're willing to do the mediation for free. So community boards need to be absolutely front and center. As Community Board 3 said tonight, nobody ever consults the community boards, and guess who is on the front line? The community boards. So I just want to let you know that that's happening. The third aspect or fourth aspect of opening is the stipulations. Now, we have a wonderful Beta NYC, as you know. It is a nonprofit housed in our office that focuses on data, and they now have a list of all these stipulations, which I think nobody else has. So just a little bit about opening, and of course, I want every restaurant to do well, and we can have a further discussion, but that's the very quick version. Also on data, I know that housing is utmost of importance to Community Board 12 and all of us. Without getting into the wonderful work that's going on in Albany and the City Council, and the fact that there's a new Housing Connect portal, I think you know all of that. What we're working on with, again, the same data emphasis is trying to get, and we're getting closer from the housing court, the data, not names, not specific addresses, but knowing where there are hotspots in terms of evictions or holdovers or anything that could indicate that there's a challenge regarding this area and people getting evicted. Again, not a lot of details to give you right now, just to give you a sense. I am absolutely focused on trying to use data to make people's lives better. In terms of the census, because that's all about data, we know that we are doing a census town hall June 24th, tomorrow from 3:30 to 5 with the library to talk about the census. We're a little bit above 54%, but I can tell you that in Manhattan, but I can tell you that we were in the 60s 10 years ago. So what we're also doing, data related, we now have a list of all the census tracts, of course, and we're looking closely at the ones that have the lowest response rate, not necessarily Washington Heights and anybody always do very well, but we're going to work and focus on those almost going person to person to try to get the rates to be up, just to give you a sense of that issue. I'm always concerned about health. I think we all are. I heard some news today. If you look at the governor's dashboard, you'll see that in some of the upstate counties where there is opening, there's an uptick in COVID. I just say that too because we all know that could be a possibility here and we do not want it. I have been pushing for a while on this issue of waste. We have 14 sewage treatment plants in the city of New York. In the Netherlands, with 6 days notice, 6 days in advance, the notice is clear where there is a hotspot of COVID or any other virus in the Netherlands. There's no reason we can't do that here. And so we're working with DEP and trying to get them to do some purchasing of machines, hiring of staff. They have the lab to be able to analyze our waste here in the city of New York, not send it to California and Stanford. We need real time right now. So I just mentioned that because we need to supplement the tracers and supplement anything else we know. We're also working on organics. As you know, the mayor cut the pickup in the budget, but we are pushing to at least have one organics drop off per community board, because if we lose that momentum, again, it goes right to the landfill. I know you're upset about the board leadership 101 land use being tonight, but we will find another time to do it when there are 4 boards tonight. So it wasn't the greatest night, but it was the only time that was available. Lots of people did sign up. We have one on the 25th on landmarks and one on the 29th on more advanced zoning, but we will find another time to do this one. In terms of all the great work that the protesters have done, just not in Board 12, although I think you do have the best murals in the United States, right on Dykeman, and that certainly to me is part of protest. The Black Lives Matter, we've got 2 locations where I believe July 1st, if all goes well, Black Lives Matter will be painted in the borough of Manhattan. One is on Foley Square, which is right near African Burial Ground and near our office. And without getting into all the specifics and the thousands of phone calls, it'll start July 1st and be done on July 4th. And that's with professional paid artists, as well as just people painting. And then the second one is going to be on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard between 125 and 127. And that too is going to start on July 1st and will be done for the 4th. And the 2 are complementing each other, and it could not be more fantastic. So I think there's lots more. You know where to get tested. You know that we're still pushing on arts, on the arts, the Uptown group. I want to thank your amazing artists in Inwood and Washington Heights. They've been part of all of this, many, many phone calls with Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood. Bosa Rivers put it together. To me, what's impressive about it is that everybody joins, but also the back and forth compliments, support, collaboration that has come out of it. And I just want to say thank you very much, because we have lots more work to do, but I think it's been extremely helpful. We're all worried about the schools. My understanding is only 49% of the students can be in a school at any one time, because there just isn't any more space. And we do need to have a decision made, and how in the world are we going to have kids in school for a period of time and out of school for another period of time without getting into all the specifics. I think we can say it's a real challenge. Thank you very much, and congratulations to Board 12 on so many levels. And I think it's great in terms of your public. I certainly want to work with Ms. Rojas about her concern about what's going on in her neighborhood, and of course, all the other issues that you brought up. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail, for your humility. You wait until the public speakers are finished so that you can hear exactly what's going on. So I more than commend you for that. So thank you once again. We're moving on. We have 26 resolutions to pass. 26. So we're gonna have to be as brief as we can humanly possibly can. So if we can just, I think most of the resolutions were sent over the weekend. Hopefully you guys have the time to read them over. As usual, licensing is usually the black sheep of the family. I know that Isidro and his committee tries as hard as possible. So we're gonna try and bang it up, do an efficient job, and kind of move along and move forward. I think the first one I see on the agenda is business development. The resolution seeking targeted and equitable access to COVID-19 related small businesses. Rebuilding funding for Washington Heights and Inwood.
Yeah, I think the main purpose of it is just to be able to, as we begin reopening, making sure that there's equity maintained. So this was a resolution that was brought forward by Tanya, and the committee made some modifications, and we felt that it was prudent, being that as things are beginning to, as businesses is starting to reopen, to be able to start advocating for equitable processes in which we could support our local businesses, whether it be via lenders or etc. But just making sure that we're able to provide equitable access to communities of color within New York City, specifically District 12.
So, okay, so that be the end of your presentation. Do people have any questions, friendly amendments, or anything that they would like to add or comment about before we move forward to the next resolution presented by Liz Ritter, our fabulous secretary? To the number 1, 2, and 3.
So we don't have any, Domingo, there were no questions for Domingo?
Yes.
It speaks to how much effort Tanya put into putting it together. I feel like it answered everybody's questions.
Well, now Steve has a question, so.
Oh my.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Is Steve asking a question? What's going on here?
Steve, you gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah. In the very last resolved, in the very last sentence, the Excluded Workers Disaster Income Replacement Fund bill has been introduced in the state Senate. What was it? Who introduced it?
This is Tanya. I know that Carmen De La Rosa has been a champion of that particular bill.
Well, then that means it was also introduced in the Assembly.
Right.
So this says it was only introduced in the state Senate.
Well, we can definitely clarify. We could say the New York Assembly in
Tanya,
general. Oh, sorry.
I think a counterpart that she was working with, I can't recall the name, introduced it in the Senate. I'm not too familiar if it was introduced in the Assembly. But that's something that we could clarify moving forward, or I think a friendly amendment to just look into more information and provide more accuracy would suffice.
Yes. And if Carmen are you saying that Carmen is the lead sponsor in the Assembly?
Well, I don't know who the lead sponsor is in the Assembly. I did look up the bill. I did look up the bill itself, and I have that information. And the bill itself was introduced first in the New York State Senate. That I do know. I can't speak to this. I know she's now trying to gather support for it in the Assembly because she's been trying to gather.
All right. So the friendly amendment is accepted by both Tanya and Domingo, right?
And what's the amendment? Just so I can write it down.
He's asking for clarification on the
The amendment would be to add the names of the name of the senator who introduced the legislation in the Senate, and the name of the Assembly person who introduced it in the Assembly, if indeed.
I don't think it was. Yeah, it wasn't. I think. Yeah.
And the number of the two bills.
What do you think, Tanya?
Well, that's pretty standard. I mean, when we're citing legislation, we usually cite the name of the bill and who introduced it. And then if you go to the website, you can click on get the same as if there.
I can do that. No worries.
I hear you, Liz, but Tanya wrote it, so might as well get her input,
All right, Tanya got it. So thank you. Thank you, Steve, for your questions, Tanya, for being so prepared, and Domingo for making the presentation. So Liz, your resolution, please.
Yes. Okay. So a couple of things. I just wanted, before I present the resolution, I just want to echo that in our committee, we had a really, and I encourage you to please read the minutes. We had a really robust conversation about barbecuing, trash, noise, various usages in the park, and we will meet over the summer, which we don't usually do and are not required to do, but there are so many points of access with questions about parks usage, and it's really changing. We did get the report from the district manager that playgrounds are open. I just want to let people know that dog runs, courts, ball fields, all of that are still closed. We made it really clear to the Parks Department representative in the strongest possible terms that we need to have dog runs reopen and that we need to have some recreational alternatives for people who would be using ball fields, but can't due to COVID. So I encourage people to A, read those minutes, and B, come to our meeting on July 14th. In terms of a resolution, we had a marvelous presentation from the Washington Heights Inwood Food Council regarding their urban gardening. We passed a resolution unanimously calling on supporting urban gardening in general and wanting to get a little bit more funding, a little more land for more urban gardening in the district. We didn't propose particular sites. We don't have sites in mind. The resolution is just in support of urban gardening and in support of funding for urban gardening. I did get a couple of edits from one of the committee members to tighten up the language. It doesn't change the meaning of it, so I'm not going to go into those specifics. And I'm waiting to hear back from the Washington Heights Inwood Food Council on exactly what their yield is and how many people they serve and how much space they have. And so we'll add that into a whereas, just sort of by the numbers information. Any questions?
Going one, going twice, going three.
Yeah, I have I have,
Of course you do. Yes, Steve.
in the fifth whereas, I would like to suggest that instead of saying inadequate, that you should say inappropriate, and that you should indicate due to soil contamination, slope, park alienation, and accessibility issues, and then end the whereas clause at that point, because I don't believe that the money was ever transferred to DOE.
Okay, that's fine. Can you send me that language? Because I'm kind of juggling a bunch of things and I don't have that screen open, but that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, no problem. And in the resolve clause, I would delete the commas there for housing and preservation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, very good.
And Steve, one of the corrections that was sent in was that we were not sure that it had been transferred to DOE. So that was
right. Okay, thank you. We got it. We're moving on.
We have Waldies who has his hand up, and so Waldies. And now
Yeah, we're gonna take two questions and then wrap up.
Okay.
Hey,
Have
Liz,
20,
I just
24
had a
more.
quick question. It's not necessarily resolution related, but it's more so parks related, right? So
So wait, somebody's crumpling something and I can't hear anything.
I'm sorry. I mean, not me, but sorry for the noise.
Okay.
So, yeah, I had a parks related question, not necessarily a resolution related question, but
okay.
Is there guidance as to like when people will be allowed to like play in the baseball field and in the and when are they going to put the rims back up?
So we don't know, and one of the things that I kind of feel a little bad for the Parks Department, because they're the ones that we're yelling at when we don't have the ability to use these facilities. But the Parks Department is making their decisions in accordance to guidelines that are coming from the mayor's office. So it's the mayor's office that is holding off on what can be used and when and what constitutes safe usage. So we've also reached out to the mayor's community affairs unit so that we can make clear to them that communities are really crying out for the ability to use. We've got 660 acres of parks and many, many, many playgrounds and sports facilities, and we need to be able to use them. So I know that's a long way of saying, I don't know, but I don't know. We're working on it.
Okay.
Thank you for the response.
You bet.
Okay. Tony. Okay, do I have anyone else before I move on to housing?
No, we had Domingo, but
no, I think I would like to commend Liz, because if folks didn't participate in that meeting, you would see what being somebody who brought everybody together and developed a constructive way of being able to take negative situations and not let community members go against each other, but identify issues and figure out how to commonly attack them, and I think that was very greatly done. I left with the understanding that as a community, we must advocate for more garbage bins within our parks, but also being able to figure out how to have the community members also engage with anybody who they feel is doing something that is out of that would impact the area, but also letting folks know that this neighborhood Karen effect of being able to call the police and falsely accuse people is not going to be tolerated.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do have one other really important announcement to make, and I want for people to really pay attention to this and spread this word. There's been a lot of information on Facebook lately about, people posting photographs of parks that are strewn with garbage, like totally trashed. And then there are literally hundreds of comments about, why are people such slobs? This is disgusting. And it's really negative. And there have been many people who have commented in the threads things like, that's really strange because I was out in the park at 6 o'clock in the evening or at 8 o'clock in the evening or at midnight and it was clean, and then all of a sudden it's dirty. So we're not really sure on what exactly is happening. It seems, based on the distribution pattern of the garbage and the condition of the garbage bags, it seems like it's a combination of people coming into the parks, removing the garbage bags from the cans, ripping them open, scattering the garbage because they've been slashed, and then having animals like raccoons and skunks distributing it further. These are two very different problems, but both of those problems are very different from people being slobs and not cleaning up after themselves, which appears to actually not be the case. For the most part, people really do seem to be cleaning up after themselves. So while I don't condone garbage, and I certainly don't condone people taking garbage out of cans and throwing it back out onto fields, I want for everybody to be a little thoughtful about not accusing people of being slobs, because in park after park after park, people do appear to be cleaning up after themselves and bagging their garbage.
Thank you, Liz. Housing and Human Services, Miranda, resolution in support of the Billionaire Mark to Market Tax Act, if you will.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'll just briefly go over our meeting this past month. Essentially, we started off by having a presentation done by our own Naisha Diaz. It was focused on inclusive communication in the human services field. We pretty much as an entire committee loved it. We thought that it's something that should be really integrated into an orientation process. She is currently actually looking to go back and work with some of the members of the LGBT task force. So as to try and make sure that it is, even more further inclusive of other language that we'd like to have included in the future. The committee was really just looking forward to try and pass a resolution once we've gotten a bit more feedback from the LGBT task force, so as to try and present it on our own end, and hopefully in the future move it forward as even something that we use across the entire board. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully just the entire board will be looking forward to hopefully having a bit more of a conversation on what kind of communication we'd like to have being used across the entire board. And secondly, I'll of course mention, we spoke a bit about the Excluded Worker Relief Fund, which has since then changed the name to Billionaire Mark-to-Market Tax Act. We had a presentation done by the Assembly member in the prior month, focusing on this bill that has since been introduced and also been introduced in the state Senate by Senator Jessica Ramos. This bill, just to give everyone, I guess, a fairly quick, brief way of explaining it, the act would establish a billionaire mark-to-market taxing residents with $1 billion or more in net assets and direct revenue from such taxes into a worker bailout fund. Establishing a worker bailout fund would provide workers traditionally excluded from wage protection programs access to unemployment benefits. We specifically noted that this is crucial to our community, given the kind of work that really occurs across the entire community board, the community district. And we recognize how instrumental this could be in keeping many of the residents that have already been, having a difficult time paying rent as is in this community. So we of course want you to please review and let us know what you think of this individual resolution. Lastly, I'll just mention that we did talk a bit about what has been presented in the City Council. The City Council bills, there's two. One has since passed, the other has really been kept on hold. It refers back to the legislation that our other council member, Mark Levine, had mentioned. I think a lot of people have realized that it is, quite frankly, not going to present many of the resolutions that we would like to see. And I think that there's a bit more of a conversation needs to be had in regards to the passage of such a legislation. I'll also just note that for everyone, really, we had a resolution that was passed a while back that's referring to the Refugee Safety Net Fund resolution. We've since spoken and we've had really everyone agree on getting this already passed for the entire board. It is essentially referring to language that was previously voted on and supports making sure that we are allocating money in the city's budget so as to ensure that we're providing any refugees that are potentially moved to New York City as a result of the federal government's responses, so as to get essentially aid in the event that that happens. We saw that in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, that had left a number of recently resettled refugees and immigrants seeking opportunities that were not necessarily being made available. And so this is just continuing that kind of work that we've already presented prior to everyone. And we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that this is now going to be essentially passed for this board. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Ariel.
We
Any
have
questions?
Wayne Benjamin.
Thank you. Quick question or observation, Ariel, or two of them. Going through the resolution, it wasn't immediately clear to me what the Billionaire Mark II Market Tax Act was, nor was it clear what the intro that was presented by Carmen and by Jessica, what is included in that. Your comments made that clear to me, and I think it would strengthen the reso if you just added a whereas that said the Billionaire Mark II Market Tax Act, formerly known as XYZ, is intended to achieve X, and the legislation that's proposed by Carmen De La Rosa and by Jessica Ramos is intended to achieve so that it's clear, because there are a number of sources and things that are cited in the reso, but it doesn't go to the heart of explaining what it is we're supporting. I would also point out that the mention of the unemployment among foreign-born growing by 31% between February and March compared to 16% native-born. I don't think anyone would be surprised to know that native-born varies greatly depending upon racial issues. So I'd be curious to know what the unemployment is when you take native born and you break that down along racial lines to see how closely some of the experience of people of color might parallel the experience of people who are foreign born.
So are you asking then, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like then an amendment. And if there's specific language that you would like to use, then just let me know. I mean, I'm more than happy to try and.
Yeah, well, I would say two things. I would say going back to my initial point, your introductory comments that provided some background on, what the Tax Act is would strengthen the resolution by explaining what it is, because the reso actually does not explain what that Tax Act is. So I think, that would help. And I would suggest that as a friendly, a friendly amendment. And I would say that there are a number of sources cited, lots of stats. And I would think in whereas number 8, the stat that is cited comparing the unemployment among foreign-born and native-born may be a little deceptive in that it captures all native-born and doesn't break that down by race. So if you're going to cite that statistic, I would suggest breaking it down so that we have a better sense of what the experience of native-born is by race, so that at least, you know, we can get a sense of if foreign-born are experiencing things similar to native-borns who are of color, or if across the board, the experience is dramatically different.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, I just want to point out one thing, however. I think that when we're talking about how this bill relates to the public, it's supposed to be talking about who's typically excluded from services, right? So I do see the point you're making about race. I think it's something that we can add as a whereas, but I don't think that, you know, what you're talking about is really dealing with the concerns about being native born or you know, foreign born, right?
No, I'm simply saying for that stat, just clarify it, and for the reso itself, just add some language, as you just said, you know, clarifying what its intent is.
You understand what he's trying to say? What he's trying to say is to make sure that you clarify exactly the concept of.
Yeah. So
just that.
Okay. So again, it just seems like you want an amendment to include further language. And
just another whereas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you're saying it verbally. Just whatever you're saying, just add it as a whereas to the resolution.
Okay. Perfect. And being that it's
I think the reason, I'm sorry to jump in here, but I think the reason why Wayne is not giving you specific language is you, Ariel, are the expert on this, and you said so beautifully what it was you were trying to do, that why would we try to improve upon your beautiful language? Just write down what you said that made an abundant amount of sense and throw that into the reso as an intro so that the rest of what follows has some context.
So I hear that, and that's why I'm saying I think it sounds like an amendment. I will go ahead and just write down something now. I think it sounds as if we're going to have to just make a vote because it's an amendment.
No, it's a friendly amendment. If you're good with it, you can just put that in.
You can accept
adding an additional whereas.
Yes, because the amendment that Wayne is proposing is not anything that materially changes the resolution. It's a modification as to form to clarify the language that follows. He's not proposing a substantive change, even though it's a bunch of words. So if you're
if I could interject at this point,
please do.
Thank you so much. Your point is very well taken. The only point I want to make is this new verbiage has to be done tonight because we actually have to vote on the actual words tonight. It's a very bad policy to go, oh, we'll add this in the future.
Okay,
because
if we agree,
bad things can happen.
Let's just move forward with the rest of the context.
Just to reiterate, what I'm saying is Ariel has already spoken the words. So, I mean, we heard what, you know, the added language that I'm suggesting is what he already said when he reviewed the resolution. And I'm saying, if you simply take that and add it, you know, as, you know, text to the resolution, you strengthen it by giving it context.
Okay, great. So we agreed. So Ariel, you should get to work. Hopefully you'll finish it within the next couple of minutes before we move on to our next public safety, land use. Yeah, Wayne, you're next. The resolution on the Board of Standards and Appeals.
Okay, so thank you, Eleazar. So I think I've spoken on 2 prior occasions about this Board of Standards and Appeals special permit. In C8 zoning districts, schools, residential, community facility uses are not permitted as of right. So the Washington Heights Inwood Community Music Charter School, which is currently actually co-located in a public school, MS, what is it, 238? 328 rather, on 164th Street in Edgecombe. They are moving out of that building into their own building. They went through a search that included about a dozen properties, and the property that suits the bill both in terms of square footage and configuration of the building, but also in terms of price, is this building at 506 West 181st Street. In order for that building to be used as a school, since it's in a C8 district, the Board of Standards and Appeals has to issue a special permit. And as I pointed out in the past, I think it was 10 years ago, so it's not recent. The community board passed a resolution asking the Department of City Planning to, in fact, rezone most or all C8 zoning districts in Washington Heights and Inwood for the very reason that I stated, because they do not allow for a range of uses that is conducive to what we need. Which is to say, had they acted on this, the special permit would not be needed. The Land Use Committee met with the applicants in February. There were both environmental and traffic studies that were not yet completed. We referred the applicants to meet with the Traffic and Transportation, Health and Environment, and Youth and Education committees, so that those committees could speak in more detail on aspects of the project that is under their purview. Those meetings took place in May, and then the applicants came back to us. The environmental studies or the remediation work that's required with the environmental studies need to be signed off finally by DEP. The transportation studies, including any traffic mitigation, has to be signed off by DOT. The Board of Standards and Appeals will not issue a special permit until both DEP and DOT provide their sign-offs. At the June committee, project further and voted to support the special permit, and noting a number of things that the school already exists in the community, and it will relocating it allows the families and students who currently are using the school to continue to use it. The renovation actually will bring us about 273, not us, it will include a 273 seat theater that's accessible from the ground floor. And that is a type of facility that is greatly needed in the community. And when we met with the applicants in February, we pointed out that both the community board and various community-based organizations would be very interested in being able to access it after school hours. So I mean, at the end of the day, the resolution provides you with background on the school, the project, some of the zoning issues, and the land use committee's support. We asked in supporting it that the applicants continue to coordinate with the committees of the community board as the project moves forward, as activities at the site begin in terms of construction, and then as they get ready to occupy it. And we also ask that they coordinate with local nearby community-based organizations, of which there are a couple that are literally next door, as well as small businesses and the the Washington Heights bid, as they are moving to 181st Street, so they can get a sense of being part of that strip. Okay. And we also, going back to our point, we also encourage the school to make the auditorium available for community events, including local theater and performing arts productions.
Thank you. Great. I think he covered most of any materials or any questions that we may have.
Yeah, we have Steve Simon.
Steve Simon.
You mean the Steve Simon that attended the committee meeting?
Hello?
Yeah, Steve, you're next.
Okay, Wayne, this is a very good resolution. It's really all encompassing. But in the minutes, don't we say that the auditorium has 400 seats?
Yeah, the plans, however, and I think I shared this with you via email, the plans show 273 seats. There may be other areas in the front area going towards the stage that per code, you can have movable seats that would bring it up, but the fixed seating capacity is 273.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Moving along, Mr. Curtis Young. Finally.
Hello, hello, hello.
Been calling you, Curtis.
You've been calling me. Well, I'm here. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Obviously, it's been a lot going on in the arena of public safety. We had a very vibrant meeting this past month, and we tackled a lot of issues. Some of them you have heard tonight, including the fireworks and other noise complaints we've received within the past few weeks. Because there's been so much going on with the demonstrations and protests in standing up against police violence and brutality, I invited local elected officials to come and share their perspective on what was going on. So Carmen, Robert, Al, Mark Levine, and representatives from Jumati office also attended. So I thought it was very helpful to have their voice and to show solidarity in this very difficult time. So one of our agenda items involved the CCRB, the repeal of 50A, which obviously has happened already. So we have two resolutions this evening. One is in support of the full repeal. Our committee discussed the repeal of CCRB back in the fall. So I was happy to hear that the city council moved quickly and the governor, everyone in support of this repeal. We voted on it and then it became, it was repealed the next day. So I did include a resolution just to show that we acted and we discussed it and we did come to a consensus on its repeal also as a committee. So that's before you this evening. And the second resolution involves the reallocation of funding for NYPD. This is obviously another one of those issues that is a byproduct of what's been happening around the country as people begin to think about reimagining public safety, reimagining our community policing. We're not advocating for a lack of resources. We're advocating for budget equity. And we really believe that there's a way to, to support our community, maintain public safety with a certain amount of money and being cut from the budget. And that amount is $1 billion. We're not the first community board to ask for this cut, to support a funding cut. CB9 has just passed a resolution in support of cutting this money from the budget. So I'm asking for your support this evening. There were a few of you who sent questions to me in advance, and hopefully I'll answer them via email. So I'm open to your comments, questions, and concerns on this topic right now. Thank you very much.
Great, we have Wayne.
Yes, Wayne.
So Curtis, concerning the resolution supporting the repeal of 50A, one of two things. I mean, since it has now been repealed, I wonder if Rezo is moot, and if it is not, would it make sense to add language pointing out that the governor, the city council, whomever has acted to repeal it, and we support those actions?
Well, I kept it for a particular reason. I debated that with myself for several days, thinking that it would be moot because the action had already occurred. But I felt it was still important for us to show our support for its repeal, and also to reinforce our commitment to the issue. And also, it also mentions several other issues as well, such as overall reform efforts in general. So there are tons of reform efforts happening right now at the state level, and I did mention a few of them in the reso. So we can add additional language to clarify, our, expectations. But I do think it was important to just move forward with the resolution because it was discussed in committee and our committee voted. So I didn't want to make a decision to not write it after we had already voted on it at our committee level.
Right. So I guess to my second part of my question, since we are, keeping it, would it not make sense to add language to the resolution acknowledging the actions that have already been taken along the line of what we're supporting?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I can most certainly do that, and I can accept that as an amendment. Meaning that on whatever day the state legislature, the governor signed this into.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Got it.
Right.
Perfect. Done.
Thank you, Curtis.
Okay. Next up is Liz, and wrapping
I'm
up.
just dovetailing on Wayne's. That is exactly what I was going to say. And in terms of a specific language suggestion, there would be an additional whereas I would add it as the last whereas on whatever the date was, the legislature passed whatever the legislation number was with the Senate and the Assembly, same as, and the governor signed it, and then change the now therefore be it resolved to, instead of encouraging them to pass, applaud them for having taken that action. And then everything else in the reso should be fine to the extent that it's calling on them to take positions on other things. But I agree with your thinking that it is important to reflect, only the board, the board speaks through reso. So I think it's important for us to capture this moment in time that this is the position that we had.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
So do we have anyone else, Catherine? So we move on.
We have Daryl.
Daryl, who else?
There's Daryl, Waldies, and Steve now.
Oh, Steve. Daryl, Wallace, and Steve, and then wrap it up. Move on to.
Thank you.
Daryl, I hope to hear from you.
I just had a question, Curtis. I noticed for the budget resolution, there were two people that.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, he kind of like, he was talking about the resolution, but then
We can come back. We can go to the next. Daryl?
Daryl, can you repeat that again? You got cut off.
Oh, sorry. There were two people in the budget resolution that abstained.
Oh, yes. That was because OC came late there, and so she wasn't there for the full conversation. And Joseph abstained as well, but he didn't provide any details as to why he abstained.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
while this is next, or you said someone else. While this and then
it's me. Hey guys, Curtis, thank you for all the work you've been doing and for doing two resolutions in public safety. I know there's a lot of public safety issues, and I'm sorry I'm gonna throw another one at you, and also kind of like aligns and parallels with parks, specifically what happened in Fort Tryon. I just want to I guess comment or question or something to that degree on the hanging that occurred. I know that it's it's a really dense situation when in conceptually. I know it happened. I believe it happened probably after your meeting or so. Incident. So I'm sure that's why you didn't speak to it, because I'm sure you do a good job of talking about that, and so does Liz. But so I just want to speak to that, just I guess acknowledge the fact that this did happen in our community, and this is kind of worrisome. I went bike riding with some friends through the park, and they mentioned their worry about it, and they asked me if I knew anything about any facts about the situation, but just really concerning from a public safety issue, from a public safety perspective, excuse me, and just overall, just the incident is just bizarre and eerie. So just wanted to just comment on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I can actually.
Yeah,
I can.
Liz,
You
go
want
for
to
it.
fill that one? Okay.
No, you can go. I'll add. I had something else to add, but you can go.
So that incident actually happened on the morning of our committee meeting. So we did speak about it briefly at our committee.
Parks, not public safety.
Of the Parks Committee. It happened on June 9th, which was, and we met later that evening. I have subsequently had the opportunity to have several conversations with people in the Parks Department and also with several people at the 34th Precinct. I spoke with Curtis about it as well. The precinct, it's part of an ongoing investigation. So the precinct is not able to comment a lot on the details of the incident, but they are still investigating it, and they're not investigating it in a, yeah, lady, we're looking into it. Like they're clearly still investigating it. It's an active investigation. One of the things that I think is important to keep in mind is that the family, through an intermediary, reached out to the people who were organizing the
protest
that was happening on Saturday. The flyer for that used the word lynching, and the family reached out to the organizers and requested that language be removed, which they then did do and turned it into a BLM protest, which is appropriate. The other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind is there are a couple of other incidents nationally of Black men hanging themselves or being hanged in public. And in the ones in other states, the families are asking for the local PD to investigate. In this case, the family is not asking that. So I don't have information because the investigation is still ongoing, but it sounds like when the investigation is concluded, there will be information that is made publicly available, which will help to make this make a little more sense than it makes right now.
Yeah, I think that's enough for that. I don't have anything to add. I think, you know, there's obviously a lot going on, and it's, you know, it's a very challenging, charged time for all of us. And I think we are all learning new details about everything that's going on in the community, including the, you know, the fireworks and other issues. Each day, everything's changing. You know, I just got an email earlier today from the precincts. I'm very happy with the work and the partnership that we have built with our precinct captain in the 33rd. As I say each month, I got an invitation, and they are hosting a roundtable discussion, the first of many, I'm assuming, a roundtable discussion to talk about community relations and what's been happening here, you know, with the fireworks and other public safety complaints. So I will be attending. I've shared that with our assistant chair, Danielle. I'm hoping that she'll join with me. And there are countless others who've been invited to this roundtable. But we're trying to collaborate as much as possible to ensure that we're tackling these issues. I've received emails from people. I know there's a lot of people watching, and you know, I have read them, and I'm trying to filter through them and help as much as I can with helping people who send me individual concerns and complaints, especially with the noise and fireworks.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
we're on top of many. Okay, Steve.
Yeah, Faye has one question for you, and then we're gonna wrap it up so we can move on to licensing.
I think Steve had a question too.
No, I think Faye was first. Oh, I don't know.
Yes, Faye.
Faye? Faye?
Faye, you have to unmute yourself.
Can we go to Steve then? Because she, yeah. And then Angel also has his hands
Yeah,
up.
let's go to Angel first, because Steve
Yeah.
he has participated more than anyone else. Angel?
I have two questions. One is procedural, then I have my actual question. If there's an issue that is public safety and related that I'd like to bring up, is this the moment when I would do that, or do I wait for new business?
Yeah, you have to wait for his
All
presentation.
right. Yes.
For what?
Thank you, Katie,
You
for
have to wait
putting,
for his
this,
presentation.
For new business? I'm
Yes.
sorry, there's too many people
Can't
speaking.
you hear me?
Hold on.
Faye, you have to unmute yourself.
I know, I'm trying, but can you hear me now?
Faye, yes, but because
Can
you
you
didn't
hear me?
respond to
Okay.
so let him
Can you
finish
hear
his
me?
point and we'll go back.
Okay.
I am on you. I don't know.
Go ahead, Faye. Ask your question.
Can't you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I hear you.
Hello?
I hear you, Faye. Yes.
Can't you hear me?
Yes.
I think she cannot hear us. That's the issue.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Oh boy. Well, okay.
All right.
Can
Faye?
you hear me?
Yes,
I cannot hear you.
Then you have a problem.
Good idea, Ozzy.
Whatever.
Yes, Faye, we can hear you. Can you hear us is the question.
She muted herself. So I think that will be, Angel, is there a
Can someone
question related
text?
to, I'll text her. Is there anything related to public safety resolutions, or is it something related to something else?
It's not related to the resolution.
Okay,
I just didn't know the procedure, so I just have to wait till new business.
Thank you, Angel. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Angel. So we're gonna move along, Faye. Hopefully we can get your system fixed. Can you put everyone back on mute? Because there's someone that has a background noise that is probably killing everyone else.
All right. And Steve, what's your question?
Yeah, I have a comment and on the 50A and I have comments on both of them. On the 50A resolution, the fourth whereas is really is not relevant. When we do these resolutions, every resolution has been passed on by a committee, and we don't and we don't refer to that. That's not a point that we make in these resolutions.
That's fine.
So you can just delete that whereas, and you're putting in a new whereas there anyway. My greater concern is with the other resolution about the $1 billion being reallocated from the police department. What you're saying in the resolution is at the heart of the police department's budget is really 5.6 billion.
You know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yes.
And the other 5.3 billion are really fixed costs that can't really be, you can't really apparently reduce those. So what we're suggesting here is that 1 billion be cut from basically the $5.6 billion budget. It's 18. Oh God, that's 18. That's 18% of the police department's budget. That sounds to me like you're really cutting into the heart of the police department.
No, I do see the.
Yes. Okay.
And I think it's too easy to just say cut $1 billion without really knowing where it's going to come from. And it seems like this is really a pretty deep cut to the agency. And
Okay.
I think we need to have more
Did you hear
information.
me?
We need to have more information as to how the police department will be able to sustain such a cut and how it would be able to function. It's too easy to say that social workers and counselors and outreach staff can replace the police officers. I agree that they shouldn't have to respond to deal with homeless issues and mental health disorders. And but I don't see how that's going to take them. How that's going to be able to reduce their budget by $1 billion.
So Steve, so what's your ask?
My
bottom line.
My ask is I don't see how this is going to work, and I'm very reluctant to support it.
Okay, so you have an opportunity to vote yes or no. So
That's
right.
right.
Whatever.
And I also have an opportunity to voice my opinion, which I just did.
Yes.
Thank you. You did. Thank you very much. And
Can I add something? I just want to also mention, and I don't know, this is not specifically mentioned in the reso, but these are not our ideas. I guess these ideas have come up several times on the board, but also there are many nonprofits, there are many elected officials that have these same ideas. And so we're sort of just reiterating things that have already been mentioned by partners, if you will.
That doesn't make it right.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I
so-
also just want to actually also thank you Danielle for adding that
Okay,
comment.
thank you.
The actual budget, this is those were the figures from FY20. The figures for FY21 is 6 billion. So just cutting 1 billion equals 5. So it's not going to end up being less than $5 billion. That takes us back to, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when that budget was about that amount of money with the same number of around roughly the same number of officers. So their budget has increased over time. There's been an increase in their budget and their operating expenses, but they can operate at their current level. And so we're just asking for budget equity. We're asking for people to consider or reimagine how we use the funding that's given to our law enforcement agency. We're not saying they should not exist. We're not saying that they're, that they don't deserve the money that they're receiving. We're saying simply that, there are a lot of other issues also happening in our community. Education, for example, is going to be cut by $800 million. So, and we know that as our Manhattan Board President mentioned earlier, there are going to be issues as we go back to school, and cutting education for that amount of money and not considering a larger cut for the NYPD is not justice. So we're advocating for just a more equitable allocation of funding. We're not trying to do a disservice to our agency. We work well and very closely with NYPD. So that is not our goal of this resolution. It's more so a resolution that's focusing on creating a more equitable allocation of our overall resources in the city. We also spend $250 million on police misconduct. So when you add the $250 million in misconduct each year that is paid by the taxpayers, and you add that to this amount of money, the numbers just don't add up. So that's what this is all about.
Thank you, Curtis. So, guys, just a quick note, point of order. This is a Zoom meeting. Anytime someone is speaking and someone just barges in, you actually breaking out all the communication flow here. So it's just kindly just to raise your hand and just wait for your turn, because I'm getting 4, 5, 6 people at the same time speaking. So let's just kind of go back to basics and just speak once at a time. Paul, Curtis, thank you very much. And we're gonna move along. It's 9 o'clock almost. To the licensing committee resolutions, we have some about 24, 23, Isidro. There's some that were already passed for March. We did not vote on those resolutions in March because we had the COVID-19 presentation instead of passing any votes or approving any votes in March. So we're gonna try and do our best to move right along the list, make our comments as quick as we can, and try to make a productive resolutions out of these 20 plus resolutions that I have here. So Isidro?
Thank you, Chair. So I wanted to rehash a bit what Ebenezer said about phase 2. Please understand if you do see a restaurant serving dinner inside or perhaps food inside, that's not allowed. And if you see something that is way out of hand, please let the merchant know right away because the summon from the SLA is very, very steep, talking about $10,000 minimum. And they also risk losing the license. We're expecting that for phase 3, there will be perhaps at least 50% capacity for restaurants. And, you know, we hope that that'll be the beginning of opening up the whole complex of our food industry. So just a quick note, we might meet for committee of the whole, perhaps in July, and that'll be the decision made by the chair and the rest of the executive committee. I wanted to ask Mr. Chair for the office staff that when we send out a notice about to change the method of operations, that this be more specific in the sense that if you're going to ask for the committee to request or to allow perhaps a DJ, karaoke, that this be stated because oftentimes it's just in general terms about method operations and that covers a lot of different items. So we would like the staff to be more specific when we send out the public notice, but you know, we can work with them.
Yeah,
this
point taken.
line.
Point taken.
Very well. So as you stated, we have resolutions for March that were passed by committee, but not by the general board meeting. So we had some renewals, most of them were renewals, new licenses, some withdrawals. When we requested stipulations, as we usually do, that they be brought to the office, all of them have brought the documents, and the office have received set documentations. For the resolution in June, very short, there were 8, 3 renewals, you know, very basic licenses. It was not a drag. And again, all the stipulations that were required by the committee have been submitted to the office. So no reversal in the resolutions. I must say that I'm very concerned about the comments made by Mr. Sean O'Reilly. Sean spoke about against Chipotle. Very concerned about all the things that are going on. We would have loved to have Sean and of course his guests to come to a license committees. That way there will be an opportunity for Chipotle to respond to some of these allegations. We want to hear like face to face what each party has to say because it's only fair. But very, very disturbing comments, and I'm very concerned about moving forward as we deal with Chipotle in the future. Just shortly, Mr. Chair, just wanted to thank Rosie for submitting the minutes for June. Very helpful. Thank you, Rosie, so much. And at this point, I would refer to the minutes, but we'll open up for some questions.
Open up the floor for at least 5 questions on this 20 plus resolution.
All right, well, we have.
I have a point of order, sort of. My agenda does not have the resolutions from March. It only has the ones from June. So I don't know about the other one.
It was a separate attachment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will look for it.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay. So, okay, I guess OC doesn't have a question anymore. So Liz and then Stephen. Steve Simon, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Isidro, for your work on all of these resolutions. And thank you, Rosie, for your minutes. I just want to speak briefly. This is a statement, not a question, about Chipotle. It's true that it would have been very helpful if they had come to the the committee meeting, but without addressing whatever are the labor issues, I've never really understood why Chipotle has to have liquor. They are the only fast food place that has this. Sure, I like a margarita with my, taco salad as much as the next person, but I like a beer with my burger and I can't get that at McDonald's. So I don't understand why Chipotle has liquor licenses. I have always objected to Chipotle's liquor licenses. I will be objecting to it this evening, and I would encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Point well made and well taken.
Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, let me, on the Chipotle question, is it possible, Isidro, to table it and have it go back to the committee so you can have a full discussion with both parties at the next meeting?
I'm not sure if that is procedurally acceptable. I will defer the question to Berlin. If that's the case, then I'll proceed with that request.
Well, I think it all depends on when the SLA is, whether the SLA will hold off acting on the application.
They usually give us 30 days. So, then time is an issue here. So we should proceed with it as is.
Okay. All right, then let me ask you about, I don't think that I got the minutes of the March meeting. So could you just explain why the committee objected to the Thai restaurant in number 6 and in number 10? If the closing hours are being extended to 4 a.m., does that mean that the backyard sitting area, that people would be out there until 4 a.m.? And then also explain why the committee objected to number 17.
So on your first question, number 6, and you're referring to for June, right?
No, to March.
March number 6. We didn't object to the Thai. No, we did not object.
It says here resolution of objection.
I don't have the minutes here with me, but that should be changed to a positive vote. Thank you for bringing that up, Steve. Because on my record, I have that it has been passed. Thank you.
Okay,
sir.
very good.
Wait, what was that?
So agenda item number 6 for the March 11th meeting. The resolution states that that is a negative vote, but I have my notes here that resolution passed. So it's a typo on my part, on my end.
Okay, and the Inwood Beer and Garden, they have a backyard area which is right up against the apartment building behind it. If we're changing the closing hours so they stay open until 4 in the morning, does that mean people are going to be sitting out there until 4 in the morning?
No. So there are 2 asks there. The first ask was to approve the enclosure of the patio. Then they will request later on, when that patio is completed, for the hours they're going to operate outside. The hours that they requested for 4 a.m. has to deal with the inside. Once and if the DOB approves the patio enclosure, they will come back to the community board to request specific hours for the patio.
Okay, very good. And number 17, why are we objecting to that one?
Number 17. That's a no show. They didn't show up to the meeting. And
okay, okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve. Kathy, did you say we had another person that was going to ask?
Yeah, we have Jay Mazer.
Wait, how many rezos are there for licensing? I just see 8.
So that's 8 for June, and there is 18 for March.
Okay.
There's an additional attachment, Danielle.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, Jay, can you hear us? Sorry.
Actually, 16 for March because 2 were withdrawn.
There's someone that have been withdrawn. Yes, thank you.
Sally.
All right, Jay,
Thank you,
go
Sally.
ahead, please.
Yeah, I didn't receive any of this information at all about these licenses. I suppose I should have mentioned that before the meeting, but I just don't have this information to evaluate it.
Okay, Jay, let me make sure that we get it.
Do you have a working email, Jay?
Yeah.
Perhaps that's something that the office can work with and making sure that you get said documents. maybe double check your email address. Perhaps something is not going out.
Right, we'll forward it again now, Jay. We'll have somebody do that for you.
Well, I'll try and look at it during the meeting, but I don't know if I'll have time to vote on these resolutions.
Sorry, Jay,
We
my apologies.
understand.
Questions once, questions
If
twice.
there are no more questions, I just want to highlight a meeting that was had that we had with DOT concerning the outside seating. It went really well. We had many community board members present there, including our distinguished Gail Brewer was there supporting our local restaurants. So thank you so much, guys, and I hope that you all go out, enjoy yourselves, and support our local restaurants. Thank you so much, Eli.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Liz, time for roll and Brent roll.
My favorite part.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So you're going to be voting on lettered resolutions A through F. And then there are a bunch of licensing resolutions. I'm referring to them by number. So for June, there's licensing 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8. Numbers 4 and 7 were withdrawn. And then for March, we have licensing 1 through 11 and 14 through 17. And I'm referring to those by licensing March and the number. So we have licensing June and the number, licensing March and the number.
One quick thing. Ariel is back on. Ariel, you wanted to say something, Liz, based on the friendly amendment that Steve.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify, because there seemed to be a bit of confusion here. There's going to be 2 different whereases. The first whereas is in reference to those being foreign born and those being already native born. The whereas that was asked to be included is so as to specifically highlight the disproportionate impact between for specifically Black and Brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
The language that I've tried to include would go, whereas the impact of the pandemic has exacerbated the issues of disproportionately higher rates of unemployment among Black and Brown communities, and then left it continue going and so forth. Does that seem to be the intent of asking for that change in language?
That makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you, Wayne?
Oh, first, let me unmute myself. I mean, in general, it makes sense. I was looking more specifically at a statistical breakdown, which may not be readily available at this time.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd have to start researching that. Unless that's readily available, that's, you know.
Yeah, I just would like to interject with a parliamentary observation concerning Jay's dilemma. If he cannot evaluate the March list of licensing resolutions in a manner that he feels comfortable with, he can abstain on every single one of them. And that's basically the best he can do, because he only has 4 choices and basically only 3. So
great point, Jay.
that's the parliamentary solution. The only one we have is his predicament. Thank you.
Okay, so then just going back to the aforementioned amendments. And what I would also mention is that what I've put as a last whereas is whereas Assembly Bill A10414, introduced in the Assembly by Assemblymember Carmen De La Rosa, and its companion Senate Bill S8277, introduced by Senator Jessica Ramos, known as the Mark-to-Market Tax Act, establishes a billionaire mark-to-market tax, taxing residents with $1 billion or more in net assets, and directs revenue from such tax into a worker bailout fund, as well as establishes a worker bailout program providing workers traditionally excluded from wage protection programs access to unemployment. Therefore be it.
Sounds good.
All right, great. Thank you. So we can move that along. And Barbara, you have your hand raised?
I'm a little confused about the licensing. I'm trying to look at the general meeting agenda and seeing if I have it straight.
Okay.
I see
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it sounds like there are several people who didn't get the, or who can't easily access the agenda for the March items. So could somebody from the office please just re-blast that attachment to everybody so that instead of distracting ourselves with scrolling through our phones and whatnot, the people who already have it, they can ignore the email. The people who don't have it, they need to get it so that we can move on.
And I'm sorry, in the meantime, people can look at an email from Paula on June 17th at 2:16 p.m.
June 17th.
Yeah.
June 17th at
2:16 p.m.
Just for
And this
reference.
morning at 11:06 for the March
Yeah, exactly.
items, it was just.
It was sent separately.
Right.
Today at 11:06.
From Chanel.
Barbara, this morning's email where it says
What up,
agenda e-blast, there's an
What up?
image with the agenda, and the second page, the second image under the June includes numbers 1 through 11.
Okay. In the meanwhile, what I'll do that, then I'm gonna get at least one or two. First of all,
don't
Barbara,
have
tell me when you don't have it.
I don't have anything from at 11:06 this morning. No.
I don't have it either.
So just do as Liz said, resend it.
Yeah,
Let's
I
just
don't
move.
have it either.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so let's just move forward. I
June
have
17th.
all right, so I have 4 committee reports, starting with Mary, Steve, Faye, and Debbie. So let's just do those, and then we can get back to doing our role, and our voting role.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mary, perfectly.
I don't think she can hear us.
I'm not hearing, yeah, I can hear talking, but I can't hear an answer to my question.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so the committee is still working on trying to see what we can do for the residents of Isabella Geriatric Center. And they've asked us that they need magazines and some simple reading picture books, in both languages, English and Spanish. And we've gotten a pretty good response. Liz has been, thank you, Liz, instrumental in tapping some other sources that she has. And so we're in the process of gathering materials to deliver to Isabella. So if anybody on the board has any friends or personal magazines, both English and Spanish, or any kind of spiritual reading materials, if you can deliver them to Isabella, to the security office, and tell them that for the recreation department from the community board, so that we get credit where credit's due. I appreciate that. Thank you. Still talking a lot about food access for seniors, and there seems to be quite a number of sources, but there are still issues, especially with people that are getting food delivered to them by the city. It's the food, the quality of the food is poor, and also they're sometimes getting meals that need to be heated up. They don't have a microwave, so it's, provides difficulty there. Still having some concerns about not being able to get our seniors in the community that usually attend our meetings to access the meetings because they don't have the equipment to do so. And we're talking about wondering if there's a possibility we can do something on YouTube, because most seniors have, at least a cell phone, you know, a regular cell phone, and possibly can access YouTube. So we're trying to look into some way of doing it. Still concerns about seniors and disabled having difficulty accessing stores and banks, et cetera, due to long lines and having, you know, some stores have hours for seniors, but they're so early in the morning that they're just not suitable. And I have emailed Isidro and Domingo to ask for their involvement and, you know, suggestions for helping to at least have some resolution for this to make it a little bit easier. Transportation issues continue to be a problem and multiply because the buses are full in the back, not allowing any social distancing. And also there are still bus drivers refusing to open the front door for the disabled. I talked earlier in the meeting about the Citi Bike frontals being, the stations being placed on sidewalks, narrowing the path for pedestrians and wheelchairs and walkers. And I hope that they will follow through on, you know, not making it impossible for people in wheelchairs and walkers to be able to pass through those areas. Cooling centers have been, you know, talked about. They said they were going to open cooling centers, but then now there's apparently, according to information I found out, is that cooling centers will not be open unless there's a heat wave, and the heat wave, as opposed to a succession of 3 days in a row of 90-degree weather, they're saying 95 now. 3 days in a row of 95 plus weather for cooling centers to be open. So, you know, sorry?
No, I was just saying, wow, I was just.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I say. So forget the cooling centers. You know, and it's a shame because there are a lot of people who are not eligible for the HRA air conditioners that don't have air conditioning because, you know, it's very expensive to have an air conditioner running. But anyway, be that as it may. We also talked about our capital expense budget because we wanted to get a head start on these things. And one of the issues that came up with the capital budget is that we want to have system-wide upgrade of various senior centers to improve connectivity for Wi-Fi and telecommunication services be number 1 rather than number 3 as it has been. And then the other 2 would follow. Now, the third item on capital budget, providing funding to construct affordable, accessible housing for seniors. We're also hoping that the Housing Committee is going to have that on their budget request as well, because we really need to have affordable senior housing as well as, you know, affordable housing in general. On the expense budget side, we added a new item, and that's to expand mental, which will be number 1 on the expense budget, expand mental health services for seniors. You know, with this pandemic and people having lost so much in terms of, you know, their ability to be a part of the community, depression, and losing people, their loved ones and friends, it's going to be a really, really important thing. And we're also already seeing, you know, signs of increasing depression and anxiety among the seniors. And we're hoping that Health and Environment Committee will also have that high on their priority list. The committee agreed unanimously to meet over the summer, both in July and August, because of the ongoing issues for seniors in the community. And we will be meeting on first Thursday of July and the first Thursday of August at 10:30 in the morning. And thank you all.
Thank you, Mary.
And have a good summer, everybody.
Yes, don't go to Aruba. It's not safe.
We have Daryl and Jay with questions.
Yeah, hi, just one quick statement, Mary. I know when I was at the Transportation Committee meeting, I did ask about the Citi Bike ADA accessibility. and they basically guaranteed that was a foot more than is required. So I just want to let you know that. And then also with Isabella, I dropped off about 3 dozen magazines there last week, and they just seemed reluctant to take them. So I don't know who's communicating with the front desk, but they may want to talk to them about that.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
All right.
Thank you.
Liz,
And thank you for taking them up there. Appreciate it.
Are we ready to take the votes, Liz? Barbara, are you ready?
Ellie, I have a quick question.
Sorry, Jay had a question first, so
Sorry, I didn't see any hands up.
All right.
Jay, go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering, do we have any information about subsequent infections of either residents or workers at Isabella? Have there been any more deaths there?
I do not have that information, but I will obtain it and share it.
Thank you. Danielle.
I think there might be an issue with the 5th resolution, the 5th licensing resolution from March. Isidro. Are you there?
Which one in specific?
It's number 5. It says Seaman Cassandra Group, 4020 Broadway between 214 and 215. That place, that address is not located between 214 and 215.
It says 4020A 10th Avenue between 214th and 215th.
I see 4020 Broadway. Is that wrong?
It should be on 10th Avenue.
It's 4028 10th Avenue. That's what mine
10th
says.
Avenue. Yeah.
That's not what it says here. It says 4020, and I'm looking at the licensing reso.
Yeah, Cassandra is definitely on 10th Avenue. So perhaps I can do Google search and send it over to Ebenezer, and that could be a quick change.
It appears that there are 2 different versions of the March items, and some versions have it incorrect as 4020A Broadway, and some versions have it correct as 4020A 10th Avenue. Everyone should be advised that it's 4020A 10th Avenue.
10th Avenue.
And the Broadway one is wrong, but thank you for pointing that out. And if anybody has the Broadway address, just know that it's 10th Avenue.
Thank you,
Okay. Liz, Barbara has her minutes. Hope whoever else was missing who else was missing their minutes?
I sent
the results.
Excuse me, since the agenda has it as that we're doing the roll call, can we please do the roll call now?
Yeah, let's do the roll call. That's exactly what we're just asking for.
Okay, so once again, we've got A through F. We've got 1 through 8 for June and 1 through 1 through 17 for March. I'm gonna ask you to say, yes to all or yes to all except whatever on which I vote no or abstain or whatever, but give me your, if you're voting no on anything, let me know what those are first and then yes to the rest, if that's the case. And out of deference to Curtis, can you text Nobles and let him know that we're about to vote? His phone is dying. Mariella Ali, how do you vote?
Present. So no to March resolutions 6 and 17, and no to June resolution number 2. Yes to the rest.
No to March 6 and 17, no to June 2, yes to the rest.
Correct.
Richard Allman.
No on June 8, yes on all other resolutions.
No, June 8, yes to the rest. Francisco Alvarez. Absent. Mary Ann Mary?
Had to unmute myself. I am going to abstain on all of the March resolutions because I don't have access to them. And yes to the rest.
Abstain on all of March, yes to the rest.
Was the March stuff reset? Because I haven't received anything.
It was just resent just now. Please check your email.
Eliezer, my Marches only go 1 through 11.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually, if anybody is having a problem with their March resolutions, just tell me that you want to defer and I'll circle back to you. Glennis?
Yes to all.
Thank you. Wayne?
Yes to all, except for the June licensing. I vote no to 6. And for the March licensing, I abstain on 9 and 10.
I'm sorry, yeah, it was totally waffly. Tell me again what you're voting no on?
What was the last thing you heard?
None of it.
What I heard was yes to all except. What I would like you to tell me is.
I got that, I'm telling you now, okay? So it was yes to all except for the June licensing. I vote no on 6 and 8.
So no to June 6 and 8.
And for March, I abstain on 9 and 10. And no to 14.
So you're voting no on June 6 and 8. You're voting no on March 14. You're abstaining on March 9 and 10. Yes to the rest. Jim Berlin.
Let's start with the June. I'm in favor of everything. No, I'll do it in your order. I'm voting no to 8, 6 and 8. I'm voting no to. And I'm voting yes to everything else. And on the March, I'm voting no to number 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Those are the ones, and I'm voting yes to the rest.
You're voting no. You're voting no.
I didn't. One second, Liz. On number 12, that Jim just voted no on, that it had been already withdrawn from the agenda.
Oh, I see that. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I would have recorded that.
Okay.
There is no.
Sorry about that.
13. Okay, so just to be clear, here is how I would like people to give me their votes. You are voting, although the specifics of your votes may be different than Jim's. You are voting no on June 6 and 8. You are voting no on March 9, 10, 11, and 14, and you're voting yes to the rest? Do I have that correct, Jim?
Oh, I thought you were just giving an example, so I wasn't listening. My sincerest apologies.
I was using you as an example. So you are voting no on June 6 and 8, no on March 9, 10, 11, 14, and yes to the rest?
I believe that is the case. Yes, thank you.
Tanya, how do you vote?
Yeah, it is for March licensing, no to 10 and 11, yes to the rest on March. For the June agenda items, no to number 8, and yes to the rest.
So no on March 10 and 11, no on June 8, yes to the rest.
Absolutely.
Eleazar, I'll circle back to you. Daryl?
Abstain on March 5 and 17. Yes to the rest.
Nobles? I'm sorry, Daryl, you're
Yep.
Daryl, you're abstaining on March 5 and 17, yes to the rest?
Correct.
Okay, Nobles.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz, for being secretary. Awesome. Ellie and Catherine, amazing session. Thank you. June, no to number 8, yes to the rest.
And what about March?
March, yes to all.
Okay, so no on June 8, yes to the rest.
Correct. Thank you for the session, everyone. It's been a pleasure
You
and an
bet.
honor.
Nobles, you're the man.
Good luck. Robin Cruz.
I have Robin Cruz on the telephone and he wants to vote. I'm going to put him on a speaker. Hold on 1 second.
Great, thank you.
Robin, you ready to vote? Here you are on the list, on the speaker now. Robin?
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes to all except letter F. I'm staying.
You got that one list?
So you're abstaining on F, yes to the rest.
You are standing on F, Robin,
Yes. Yes.
And yes
And-
to the rest.
and yes to the rest.
Yes to the rest.
Great.
I'm staying letter F.
Yep, gotcha. Waldis,
Yes to the rest.
Okay, thank you.
I'm on?
Yeah.
All right, so yes to all.
Gerard, how do you vote?
Good evening. I'm going to abstain on F and yes to the rest.
Abstain on F, yes to the rest. Catherine Diaz, how do you vote?
I
You gotta talk over the fireworks.
mine started too. It's no on June number 8 and March 11. Yes to the rest.
No on June 8, no on March 11, yes to the rest. Naisha Diaz. Is Naisha here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes to all.
Whoops. Domingo, how do you vote?
I'm looking. Give me 1 second.
You want me to
so,
come back to you?
yes to all, except
No. Tell me your no's and then yes to the rest.
okay. So, no to number 8.
Which number? June or March?
That's June.
Chipotle.
Yeah, June.
And yes to the rest. And yeah, props to the public safety committee. It's time to defund the NYPD.
No to June, number 8 in June, yes to the rest. Gabby, how do you vote?
No to June 8th and yes to the rest.
No to June 8, yes to the rest. Ashley Fernandez, how do you vote?
Yes, no to June 8th, no, or number 8 on June, and no to number 6 on March. Yes to the rest.
No to June 8 and March 6, and yes to the rest. And I don't want anybody to think that we don't like particular calendar dates, and I understand you when you say June 8th or March 6th or whatever to be referring to the.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks. So it's kind of cute though. Sally, how do you vote?
On the March resolutions, I abstained from everything except number 17, on which I vote yes.
Okay, so abstaining all March except yes on 17. Okay.
Right. On June, I vote no on number 8. I abstain from numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Wait, hold on a second. June, no, 8. Abstain.
On 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Okay.
I abstain from resolution D.
Uh-huh.
And I vote yes on A, B, C, E, and F.
So yes to the rest.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, you're voting, you're abstaining on all of March except for 17, on which you vote yes. You're
Right.
voting no on June, on number 8 for June, and abstaining to the rest of those. You're abstaining to letter D and voting yes to the rest.
Yes, perfect.
Thank
you.
Faye, how do you vote? Faye?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Yes. Thank you. I'm voting yes and everything except for F. I couldn't ask the question, so I'm voting no.
Yes to all except for F, on which you vote no. Okay, Barbara, how do you vote? Barbara, you have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself, still can't hear you. Can somebody unmute
It's about
Barbara?
communication.
Faye, you could mute yourself, and can someone there we go, we got you.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right. On June, I vote no on E and F and numbers 6 and 8. In March, I vote yes to all.
So you're voting no on E and F?
Yes.
No on June 6 and 8, and yes to the rest.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Mariella?
I vote no on F, no on June 6 and June 8, and no on March 5, and yes to the rest.
No on F, no on June 6 and 8, no on March 5, yes to the rest.
Yep.
Juan Guzman.
So I'm voting no for June for number 8 and yes for everything else.
No on June 8, yes to the rest. Miriam? Miriam James, going once, going twice. Is she here? I guess not. Okay. Danielle?
No to number 8 for June. And can I vote yes twice for F? Just kidding.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, and yes to the rest.
Okay. Leopoldo?
Good evening, everyone. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm gonna vote no for number 17 on the March licensing.
Whoa.
And no for number 17 and everything else, yes.
No on March 17, yes to the rest.
Correct, thank you.
What
Have
you
a
got
good
for
evening.
St. Patrick's Day? Yosef?
Hi. Yes to all except for no on F and no on 8.
No on F, no on, I assume that's 8 for June.
Yeah.
No for June 8, yes to the rest. Osi?
For June, I vote no for number 6 and number 8. And for March, I vote no to number 5 and yes to everything else.
No for June 6 and 8, no for March 5, yes to the rest.
Correct.
Thank you. Is Betty on the call?
Yeah, I just happened to see her a few minutes ago. Unless she left. Not anymore.
When you get to the end, Liz, I would like to change a vote. Thank you.
Okay. Was she on the call earlier?
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure I record that properly. Francisco Lopez. I know who.
Hello. Okay, wait. Let me look. All right. So March. Yes to everything. June. No to 8. Yes to everything else.
So you're voting no to June 8, yes to the rest.
Yes.
Maria. Maria Luna.
Can you come back to me?
Sure.
Later, please? Thank you.
Yep. Cindy Matos.
I am voting no for number 8, June, and yes to the rest.
No for June, number 8, yes to the rest. Jay Mazer. You got to unmute yourself, Jay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
No on D, and I've heard enough to vote no on June 8th. Yes to A, B, C, E, and F, abstain on the rest.
No on D, no on June 8th, yes to the remaining lettered rezos, and abstaining on the rest.
Yes.
Isidro.
So abstain on June 8 and abstain on letter F, yes to everything.
Abstain on F and June 8, yes to the rest.
Correct.
Ariel.
I vote no on June 8. Yes 1,000 times to F, and yes to everything else.
I'm just gonna say if I didn't let Danielle vote twice, I can't let you vote 1,000 times.
I'll accept once. It's okay.
So I'm sorry, you said no on June 8th and yes to the rest?
Yes.
Thank you. Debbie.
Thanks, Liz. I abstain on number 8, June. I think I've got a conflict on A because that's directed at federal, unless it's directed at the U.S. Small Business Administration. I guess I don't work for them, but it's
So
sort of general.
Can I just throw, you don't have a policy, you're a community liaison, you're not a policy, legislative, or budget person. So the COIB ruling is that there's a distinction between policy, legislative, and budget staff versus community staff. So that would not, which is why for Steve it's a conflict, and for you it would not be.
And she also doesn't work for the people we're addressing it to.
Also true.
Thank
Okie doke. All right.
So you're abstaining on June 8th?
I am abstaining on 8 June, and yes to the rest then.
Great. Jonathan?
Yes to all, and no, abstain on F.
You're abstaining on F, yes to the rest?
Yes.
Aisha?
Yes to all.
Rosie?
Hey, so I am saying no to number 8 on for the June meeting, and then yes to all.
No on June 8th, yes to the rest. Paradise?
Okay. Hi, I vote yes to all except number 8 for June, with a thank you to public safety for F.
Looks like public safety is getting all the love here. No on June 8th, yes to the rest. Christina?
Hi, no to June 8th, abstaining on March, and yes to the rest.
No to June 8th, abstaining on all of March?
Yes.
Abstaining all March, yes to the rest. Bruce?
March, no to 10 and 11. June, no to 6 and 8. Yes to the rest.
No on March
10 and 11.
11.
June, no to 6 and 8.
Yes to the rest.
C.
See.
Gracias. Eda?
Hi.
Yes, I'm here. I am abstaining from March 17, and I am voting no on June 8, and yes to everything else.
No on June 8, abstain on March 17, yes to the rest.
Correct.
Steve? Steve?
He has a question.
Okay, not voting on B due to conflict, since I work for the City Parks Department. Abstaining on F. And abstaining on 6. And voting no on 8.
Which 6? June 6 or March 6?
June.
Okay.
Voting no on 8. And yes to everything, including all of the March resolutions.
So you're not voting due to conflict on B, you are abstaining on F, you are abstaining on June 6, you are voting no on June 8, and you are voting yes to the rest.
Yes.
Thank you. Omar?
Hi, everyone. I am going to abstain on D due to my position with the Department of Education.
Hold on. You're,
That's
He
probably
means not
D.
voting,
you
I
mean
believe.
voting, but do you work for that school?
No, but I work with the construction authority that's going to have some of that work that they're going to be doing in that school. So I can't be voting on that.
See, gotcha. Okay, so you're not voting on D
No, not voting on D due to my position with Department of Education.
and the rest?
With June licensing, I'm voting no to number 6. With March licenses, I'm voting no to 10 and 11, and yes to everything else.
So you're not voting on D due to conflict. You're voting no on June 6. You're voting no on March 10 and 11, and yes to the rest.
That's correct.
Thank you. Angel?
I'm here. Yes to all.
Is Chris Ventura on the call? Chris Ventura going once, going twice?
Was on the call.
Yes, he's on.
Hi, yes, I'm voting yes to all.
Yes to all. Curtis? Curtis? Did we lose Curtis?
Curtis,
wait,
you have
what's
to
going
mute.
on?
He's muted.
I was
Right.
muted. I'm here. I
you
said
good
no
to go.
on June 8, no. Number 8, no, and yes to the rest.
No on June 8. Yes to the rest. Okay, Maria.
Okay, thank you so much. I am voting no on the letter F. I am voting no in June, number 8. And in support of the businesses coming back to our community, I am supporting the recommendations of the licensing committee for this month.
Wow.
Is that a good thing?
First time in my 34th year in the community board. Wow.
Wow. Giving a round of applause.
Well, she should be trying to defund the NYPD though.
Well, that's okay with me.
Okay, so let me just see if I have this straight. You're voting no on F. You're voting no on number 8 for June, and you're voting yes to the rest.
Correct.
And close boogans and just the wheels fall off the wagon there.
Liz.
Jim.
I'm changing my vote on F to abstain.
So you're voting no on June 6 and 8. You're voting no on March 9, 10, 11, 14. You're abstaining on F, and you're voting yes to the rest.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, I
Liz?
Yes?
This is, I had trouble with my phone. I apologize, I couldn't unmute it in time.
No worries.
Okay, I'm voting no on F and no on number 8 and yes to the rest.
No on F, no on June 8, I assume.
8, yes.
Yes to the rest. I am voting no on June 8. I am abstaining on June 1, 5, and 6. I am voting no on March 11. I'm sorry, on March 11 and 14. And I'm voting yes to the rest. Eleazar?
Sorry, Liz, if I might, I just want to also note, I just actually realized that the language within F would leave me to have to change the vote as to have, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, the very resolution I tried to vote for 1,000 times on, I'm gonna have to now change it so that I am not voting due to conflict.
What's the nature of the conflict?
Employer.
I see.
But at least you all know my position on many issues now.
Who's the employer?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Francisco, do you have something related to your vote? Because your hand's up.
I just wanted to make a comment about some of the stuff that we are voting on, but not my vote
No,
particularly.
you can't.
Okay.
We're only voting.
Yeah.
That's why my hand was raised. So when that's over and there's questioning, I'll be one of the first.
I got you. Okay, Eleazar.
I'm sorry, doesn't he need to state his employer for the record? I mean.
Can we sort of like
He works
take
for
a course? So just have a person who states that they cannot have a conflict or whatever, and let's just move on.
Daryl is actually correct. He does have to state who he works for. He works for the city council.
Well, I've actually switched. I'm now in the mayor's office.
I see. Okay.
Yep.
And what's the nature of that conflict?
Being employed by the mayor's office.
That's a conflict because why?
The resolve calls upon the mayor and the city council.
Do you have a policy position with the mayor's office or a community position with the mayor's office? If your policy, I mean, I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to Debbie. If your position with the mayor's office is as a community liaison, that's not a conflict. You can vote your conscience on this matter. If your position with the mayor's office is a policy, legislative, or budget responsibility, then that would be a conflict. I don't know what you do at the mayor's office, but if it's not a policy, legislative, or budget role, then that's not a conflict and you are free to vote.
What exactly is your position?
I'm a manager, so that's why I'm saying like this would typically be a conflict. I would not. Yeah,
Right, so let's just.
Okay,
can
so
you just
that is a conflict.
accept it?
To the best of his knowledge, he has a conflict and he should not be voting. I think we should accept that.
Complicated.
We're moving on here. Eleazar, how do you vote?
June, I'd like to vote no in June and yes to the rest.
No on June 8th, yes to the rest. Okay, is there anybody whose vote I did not record? I think I got votes for everybody except Francisco Alvarez and Mariam James. They are not on the call. We are.
I want to change one of my votes.
Yes.
On June 8th, I vote no.
Okay.
You ready? 10 o'clock. We don't want to finish at 11 o'clock, by no means.
3 to 10.
I don't have the exact tally, but I've got at least 27 no or abstaining votes on June 8. So it appears that everything passed except for that one. I'll have an official tally tomorrow, but for those of you keeping score, it looks like everything passes. I'm not sure about June 6. I think that one passed narrowly, but it looks like June 8 is the one that did not pass.
Thank you. And for the sake of keeping the agenda together, we would love to have 3 minutes presentations on the remaining 3 committee chairs that have reports to make. Steve, Faye, and Debbie, if you'd be kind enough to.
Eli, I'm sorry. Francisco he raised his hand. He wanted to say something.
All right, thank you for reminding me. Also. Francisco.
How you guys doing? Just quickly, we were having conversations about Washington Heights and Inwood and just the discriminatory practices that we have been having in our community for quite some time when it comes to black folks that come visit the Heights. And it's not just it's Dominican owned businesses as well as non-Dominican owned businesses. And I thought that we were gonna talk about that in this meeting. And I just wanted to bring that out. And lastly, another point that I always make is we live in Manhattan and there will be noise. We've been locked and cooped in since March. You guys got to give it at least a couple of weeks where people can get some of those frustrations of being cooped up for 3 months. So there is going to be fireworks. There are going to be parties more than usual, but this is an unusual time that we are living in, and people have to kind of be cognizant of that. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you for your points, Francisco. Always well taken. Steve? Steve, your report? No?
Sorry, Angel has his hands up.
He has his hands up for a new business and we're still on committee
Yeah, we're
reports.
still in committee reports.
Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
All right, I don't want to get into a public debate, but I would argue that a lot of the noise that's been going on lately has been really excessive, especially when it goes on till 4 or 5 in the morning. As of today, 878 residents of Washington Heights and Inwood have lost their lives in the COVID-19 crisis. 4,831 have tested positive. Zip codes 32 and 40 are tied right now for the highest rate of cases per 100,000 people. Zip code 32 has had the highest number of deaths, 267. Zip code 40, 254 deaths. Zip code 33, 194. Zip code 34, 163. So we have 4% of the overall deaths in New York City. I'm trying to arrange a meeting of the committee for July. Our original date was preempted by the new members' orientation on July 9th. I'm waiting to hear back from some of my committee members. Naisha Diaz, Sally Fisher, Jay Mazer, please get back to me so I know your availability. We would be getting a presentation from Columbia University Medical Center on a new mental health outpatient initiative, as well as a presentation from the William F. Ryan Health Center, which is renovating a building and preparing to open up a what promises to be a very good health facility for Washington Heights at Wadsworth Avenue, just south of 181st Street. The New York State Nurses Association is coming back to us to talk about the situation with the psych unit at the Allen Pavilion, which has been relocated to Gracie Square on the Upper East Side. And we have no word as to when it's going to come back to Allen. And I'm also expecting to get reports from New York Presbyterian and Isabella Geriatric Center. So please, committee members, get back to me so we can settle on a date for the July meeting.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, can you do me a favor and just send me those statistics because I didn't catch all of them. I'd appreciate it.
Danielle has a question, I'm assuming, for Steve.
Yeah, I have a question for Steve. Steve, I'm just wondering if the committee considered taking a stance on racism and racism as a public health issue, especially in light of what happened in Fort Tryon Park, as was previously mentioned.
This is committee business.
Yep.
I'm wondering if they took a stance. I'm just curious.
Oh, that was a question?
Yes, it's a question.
I don't understand the reference to Fort Tryon Park.
My question is, racism is a public health issue, and what's happening to Black people in the US is a public health issue. And I'm just wondering if the health committee considered taking a stance on it as a public health issue.
I think that might be a good topic for our next meeting.
It's it's an awfully broad topic. But I don't think it applies to what happened. We don't know exactly what happened at Fort Tryon Park. And I think what Liz suggested earlier is that it may not turn out to be what people think it was. So I don't know that that's relevant to this situation. But this is something we've discussed in our committee, the overall problem with health disparities, and we will continue to look at it. We tend to pass resolutions that are specifically targeted to situations, and I think on the whole, on the balance, our committee has been dealing with providing, arguing and advocating for making sure that we have appropriate medical care for all of the people who live in Washington Heights and Inwood.
All right, thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Faye? Faye?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, okay. Yes, I would like to report on our Youth and Education Committee recent panel discussion. As probably many of you already witnessed, we have tons of problems still, latent in our district. And I wanted just to single out a few of them just to, to make aware of that. According to the superintendent, one of the things that I think is worrisome is the expectation on teachers providing instruction virtually is still a challenge since they have never have done, since this hasn't been the case before. So many of them are still in the learning along with many other students. So some of the issue also that is still a problem is that there is not sufficient laptops. Internet service is another problem that the district is still facing, which by the way, I wanted to thank Mr. Chairman for following up on the letter that our committee wrote. You send it to Board of President, and I hope that Board of President as well will echo that request, and hopefully we would have an answer from the Chancellor. Some other problems also I wanted also to single out is that padding is still in limbo in terms of with instructions. Parents need information with the technology. Many parents, even parents, they're not really aware how to deal with this. Neither their children know how to deal, with this technology. On the side of the deputy, one of the panelists, Deputy Commissioner Ms. Williams, one of the things that she provided is that in terms of the runaway and homeless youth, is that during the COVID, at least the department were very helpful in taking them out of the shelter and putting them in hotels, rooms separately. She also found on the issue that she urged the federal government and remain hopeful that they, provide additional funding much needed, to alleviate the situation that, many districts, or per se New York City in general, is facing. I also wanted to mention that Ms. Batino, that probably many of you know her, she's a retired teacher from District 6. She also mentioned her recent contact that she had with several principals, and teachers, and even parents. and she found out that District 6 or the school district had distributed over 4,500 iPods, but still, still showed. She also mentioned that the service, the Wi-Fi service that is being provided in the district is not really, the service has not been exactly the same compared to other districts like the affluent communities. So this is something that is also, we should start looking into it. And another thing, and last I wanted to mention, is the materials and supplies that required to complete assignments among students. Unfortunately, they are still struggling at home to get those supplies. So in other words, there is a shortage in supply for a student to be able to complete their assignments. Along with this report, you probably will see the agenda. Unfortunately, I have to submit the agenda at 5:30 yesterday because the agenda was a composition of several of tallies from the other committee. As you know, we did this in conjunction or in collaboration with the Department of Youth, more precisely the Neighborhood Advisory Board, where some of my colleagues like Curtis also is sitting there, myself, but some of the other folks that were supposed to submit the notes for that meeting, unfortunately they submitted late. But anyway, equally important, they did the job. I want to thank everyone that were involved in making this, possible. And of course, I want to thank all the panelists, like again, our superintendent, Commissioner Williams, Ms. Batinos. I also want to thank Sharon King from Uptown Hub at the Presbyterian Hospital. She did an excellent. And also, of course, our beloved Yvonne Stan, who always, is willing to join us. And of course, I don't want to miss the staff, what community board for working on the transmission, making all this possible, and all of you for even taking time and watching those videos. Other than that, I thank you all, and I wish you everyone to have a healthy and wonderful summer. Thank you all.
Thank you, Faith, for the wonderful written letter that you were able to send, and that you request to get us to send those letters to Manhattan Borough's President's office. Thank you. Debbie, the last report before we go into new business and old business, new business, and then wrap it up.
Thank you, Eli. I think you've gotten most of my report, so I will not add to that. On Citi Bike, just a reminder, July 6th, we are having a meeting because MTA needs to come to us and talk about the new elevators, the next elevator project, which would be kicking off at the 190th Street Ace stop.
I'm sorry, that's the next meeting when?
Sorry, July 6th. So we will be having a summer meeting specifically to hear from the MTA about the next phase of the elevator project, which means that, again, as of today, 181st Street and the elevators at the 184th Street end of that station are on track to be completed in August. Yes. So they need to come to us to talk about September. And I will say, I think, I know Ebenezer provided information on this, but just in terms of the 181 busway, as far as I know, to reiterate that this will be a large community meeting, not only with CB12, but all the stakeholders, including elected offices, businesses, all the myriad stakeholders that are involved in this. I think DOT's point of view is that this one is not like the others. It is complicated, and it is going to take a sort of public input of all kinds and sort of but I at least have not heard any timing on it. And again, this is Ebenezer, to just people understand, the chair and Ebenezer, they were on this immediately. I was on, we were talking to them. And I think the timing of us being on the short list, again, this idea was floated in November and announced, but the idea that we got on the short list, I think was like, it was so sudden. And I think it was a surprise to a lot of entities. That's it. That's what I got. Oh, and good luck. We have so many of our community board members on ballots tonight. Good luck to everybody.
Guys, gonna finish our meeting with one last item that Angel is going to present to us on new items. And then we're gonna definitely make sure that you guys have a wonderful rest of the evening. Angel, if you will, before we send us off, have a couple of minutes. Angel is gone.
Yeah.
We also have elected officials
Here.
and representatives who have been patiently waiting to give their reports.
You mean the ones that just showed up at 9:30? Who's there? I don't see anybody.
Since 6:30. I've been here since 6:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking at the first. All right. So Chris, and who else is there? Chris, go ahead.
Hi, everybody.
There's a time limit, right?
So this is what we do now. We
see you.
meet on
Sorry.
Zoom. It's nice to see you all. I won't take much of your time. All of the things that I would update you on have already been discussed extensively tonight. The repeal of 50A, the movement building around that effort, the conversations around defunding NYPD. I think honestly, the biggest update that I'd provide is that just tonight, after the polls closed, for obvious reasons, we wanted to wait to announce until after that point. We're going to be doing a food pantry in Holyrood Church on Thursday at 12 noon. So please spread the word, people in your buildings who may be in need right now. We're giving away substantial boxes of dried goods and fresh produce. And it's something that we hope to start this Thursday and continue going forward. And the one thing that hasn't been discussed as much today that I would just put on everybody's radar from our work in the senator's office right now is sort of wave of evictions that we don't necessarily know how quickly it's coming, but we have a sense that it is coming because the executive order from the governor became Swiss cheese effectively on Saturday. And so filings of new evictions are going to start to pick up. And so we're working closely with legal service providers in the district in order to get as clear of a vision of the way that proof that your income was impacted due to COVID-19 is going to be implemented in the courts, right? Because if you can prove that you suffered financial hardship because of COVID-19, then theoretically you're safe from new eviction proceedings for non-payment. Etta knows this well from her work, I'm sure. This is all being figured out right now. And so we are committed to working with Manhattan Legal Services to offer a symposium on what we know. That'll probably be the week of June 13th, and we'll reach out to the relevant committees at CB12 if there's interest in co-sponsoring. But just know that we are definitely very worried. We have our ears to the ground and our eyes out for the ways that we need to be protecting our community right now from the risk of eviction that's opened up recently.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm
Thank you
also here,
for-
Mariel.
Yeah.
And by June 13th, I assume you meant July 13th?
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Liz. July 13th. It's very late.
I just want to say thank you, Chris. I'm going to be reaching out myself as a person that
So I
will
look
be in
forward
a
to
lot of need. Yeah, thank you
Okay.
always for your patience and humility. I really appreciate that. Sorry. Mariel?
Hi, everyone. Sorry,
Mhm.
I had to dip out for a little bit. I was also here at 6:30 and dipped out for a bit and came back at around 9 something. But I just wanted to say, one, thank you so much for you all being here. This is one of the community boards that I cover. I cover quite a few that folks are still on and engaged over the summer. And I think it's very important, like I think his name Victor has said, to discuss race relations, especially because it is pertinent to this community. What I would like to say as well, that the controller has a COVID resource guide that we continue to add information on. That's in several different languages, including Spanish, Bangla, and Urdu, which I know are languages that are spoken around the city. Also wanted to mention that we are continuing to have weekly workshops for small businesses. So if folks would like me to share that, I can do so, as I always do with Ebenezer. And I also wanted to say that we had a tenants' rights forum, or a few of them, in which people got to ask questions to a legal aid attorney. This summer, we're planning a few virtual events as well as a Pride event, and I'll get back to you with the details. But also, too, we are going to have a few meetings regarding to specific communities. So if anyone that's on the community board call deals with immigrant communities in different ways, I know most of you all do, but feel free to give me a call or send me an email. And again, I can for sure ensure that Ebenezer sends my information down. And we also have a few reports. One report is pertaining to issues that we've had as a city regarding COVID. So the controller has asked for documents regarding COVID since the beginning of the shutdown, which was around like March 22nd or so. So we haven't gotten much information from the city. And again, as his role as comptroller is to ensure that we're as efficient with our resources as possible. So I will get back to you when we have follow up on that. And also too, we're looking into the lack of resources that senior facilities face, especially when it comes to advocates for the seniors themselves. And I will share that report with the agent committee, as I'm very fond of all of the members on that committee in this board. But I would like to say thank you so much all for having me here, for being patient as well as listening to my report. And I will be in some committee meetings over the summer, but we'll definitely see you all hopefully in person in the fall.
Thank you, Maria. We love you. We'd love to have you here, and we missed you here. Do we have anyone else? Any other elected officials that wants to come on?
Lori's here. There we go.
Who?
Lori.
Oh, Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Eliezer.
Nice
to
seeing
see
you.
everyone. Just want to share with all of you that these past 3 months, where each of us who are on the congressional staff have been isolated from each other, responding remotely as best we can to the profound needs of our constituents, ironically, has been some of the most productive time that we've had. In quick succession, the congressman responded to the needs of constituents through several sweeping bills. Joining forces with Gail Brewer and Mark Levine, he won the inclusion of a provision in the House's major transportation infrastructure that will require the creation of a community outreach committee at Amtrak. This will help to ensure that we will no longer be faced with the situation like we were with Amtrak putting billboards and obscuring people's views and possibly worse. He recognized that Amtrak is not bound by city planning ordinances, land use, etc., and he's moving to change that. He scored multiple wins with this critical, huge transportation bill, despite being the only member of the New York delegation who is on transportation and infrastructure. So in the works are the INVEST Act, which will provide $30 billion to upgrade hospitals, strengthen public health infrastructure, modernize roadways, and hopefully the postal service, which we do get a great number of calls about. There's also proposed monies for energy infrastructure. I want to share with you a bit of his response, however, to something, that you've all been speaking of this evening. I found it, in terms of systemic racism and community relations, the police, etc. So I just want to share this quote with you. This is from a telegram that Martin Luther King sent to Cesar Chavez. Some of you, I may be dating myself, by knowing who Chavez was. He was the legendary food worker organizer. Our separate struggles are really one, a struggle for freedom, for dignity, and for humanity. You and your fellow workers have demonstrated your commitment to righting grievous wrongs forced upon exploited people. We are together with you in spirit and in determination that our dreams for a better tomorrow will be realized. And the congressman used that as a jumping off point to talk about how Latino and African-American leaders are united across the country to denounce hate and profiling. And that happened even if, and all too frequently, in his congressional district in Harlem, Bronx, Washington Heights. But we are stronger together and must continue to stand in solidarity to unite our communities against hate and division. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to, after 3.5 hours of a lot of information and a lot of discussions and getting a lot of work done, to wrap up our meeting. I know Angel has been waiting for almost 2 hours to say a few words so that we can finally make sure that
Finally
we're all-
completed. Okay.
Yes.
I'll keep it very quick and succinct. I want to flag this in particular for both parks and public safety. So I'm sure that you all have seen the mopeds that you can rent out on the streets. I think they're wonderful. I like them. It's a different form of transportation. However, a concern of mine is that folks are using them in the park trails, and they're using these motorized vehicles where pedestrians are walking, and they're also running. In particular, so I live right by High Bridge Park. There's a beautiful trail that leads across High Bridge into the Bronx. Folks are riding those motorized vehicles down that the trail that's there and across the bridge into the Bronx. And there's also that sidewalk right next to Harlem River Drive down by the water where the same thing is happening. So I just want to flag that so that we can open up a conversation, not now, but during the next committee meeting for either parks or public safety, because I do think that something needs to be addressed in that regard.
I mean, thank you. That is one of the things that we spoke about briefly, and we will be addressing again. Just want to make a very important announcement to everybody on this, and thank you for reminding me. If you see anything hinky going on with these Go Revels, I urge you to take a picture or a short video. Make sure that your geocaching, so that your location and timestamp features are on. Email it to support@gorevel.com. Send it to the company. When the company sees that their vehicles are being used in violation of New York City law, that it's being used in a park, that it's being used on a sidewalk, that it's being used to go the wrong way down a one-way street, whatever, I mean, sure, it's an enforcement issue, but if Go Revel has information on the improper use of their vehicles, they have the ability, it's a web-based payment system, they can just disable that user's ability to rent a bike from a scooter from Go Revel again. It's totally an enforcement issue. We've got other things that we can talk about as well in committee, but I do believe that that's going to be a very effective reporting strategy.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz.
I like to,
Angel, I saw it myself on High Bridge on
Okay.
Friday. Yes.
Great.
Thank you. I'd like to give a special thanks to Nancy Preston and all of you guys who constantly send us emails as to how to improve our operation and how do we conduct our businesses. So you guys only make us much, much better. So having said that, enjoy your summer and be safe and have a great night, each and every one of you guys.
Can I just briefly make an announcement? If I don't, hi. Can I just very briefly? It's just that I want to the distribution of.
You muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, I will continue distributing the food from my building. Thank you, Liz, for coming to help me. On Wednesdays at 1 p.m., you know anybody that needs food, please let me know. You know how to get me. I want to make sure that people don't go to bed without some food. So thank you so much to Liz Ritter for helping me.
Have a great night. Here, Maria.
Nice, nice, Eliezer.
Bye. Have a great night.
I hope to see you all at the NOMA Open Studio on Thursday.
Mari Collins. Goodbye.